we are just getting into the set review. We are going to we've already done all of the new cards, which are the earliest in the set numbers. So now we are going to the reprints. Here we go. So Ajani's Pridemate. There's plenty of synergies and ways to enable life gain. So this is a great card in limited. It's a nice build around, but it also has a relevant type, because we've seen cat synergies, at least in the form of the mass pump charge spell. So, which is the new printed +2/+2 to all your creatures, and it costs 1 less for each cat you control. So at a starting cost of 5, and my cat is currently just aggressively rubbing up against my leg. Here, come here. Yes, I know. Oh, hello. Hello. You like the cat? He likes the cat. Okay. No, you're interfering with it. He's like, I don't want to get down. He's like, I'm perfectly fine here. Okay, fine, you can stay. No. He's all about the All right, you can stay there. That's fine. All right, I can still do this with your tail in my face. Just don't do the cat butthole cut for them, shall we? Well, here, cat butthole cut. All right. Anyway, Ajani's Pridemate has plenty of support. I was worried that it wouldn't have quite as much of support as it needs. It's got plenty of support for life gain in this. So this is a good card to pick up. Upper mid pick. It's quite nice. Angel of Finality is a 3/4 flyer for 4. That's a good ROI. This used to be rare, I believe. When this creature enters exile target player's graveyard, that's very relevant in this because there's flashback and threshold. So this is also a really nice upper mid pickup, because it's just a really good statted flyer for white, and it is really relevant because of those particular abilities. So that's just really nice here. Banishing Light, as always, will be strong. This is one of the more important removal spells in white. It's non-land permanent, so that's a really, really nice thing to pick up here too. This is going to be an upper mid pick too. What you should note is that Make Your Move right here is enchantment destruction. So destroy target creature power 4 or greater. That's going to be really relevant against Gruul. And what else do we see? We saw a little bit in black. This Make Your Move is not going to be as relevant against white itself. Unless they have Banishing Light. So Make Your Move can get rid of Banishing Light, of course, and is going to be really, really necessary because Gruul, both green and red, have synergies where they rely on having 4 power on a creature. So they have a lot of, in the new cards, we saw a lot of creatures with 4 power that were relatively cheap. They had tiny butts, but they were very, 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 very much geared toward power. So why is it going wonky here? Let's see. Oh, 74 in here. Jesus, I was like, why is it so damn hot? It was only set to heat to like 66. So like, I think something's going slightly wrong with my my system. Turn off the heat here. Okay. There we go. That should be fine. All right. Hopefully it'll cool down a little bit. I should get some ice. Okay. Anyway. So, Cathar Commando, also another artifact or enchantment destruction thing that's going to be good against Banishing Light. So we're seeing a couple pieces of artifact and enchantment destruction, which does make Banishing Light a little bit worse. So you can see that it's printed at common here. It used to be uncommon. So this is interesting here. But these are very, very classic mechanics. We've had a lot of creatures that can destroy target artifact or enchantment by sacrificing themselves. There was a kami that did that. So Ramen, what they did, so here you go. So these are reprints. These are actual reprints, some of which have new art, like the Pride Mate, I believe. I don't remember seeing this art before, but maybe not. This art I remember seeing, this art I remember seeing, this art I remember seeing. So Pride Mate might have been printed like this in the past. There might have been a version of it that had this art. But this is the same Healer's Hawk art. These are all reprints. These are new cards printed for this set. Everything before this, before 131, right? 131 and before. Those are all newly printed cards for this set, newly designed and printed cards for this set. Some of them are the same effect as previous cards, like Seize the Something from Duskmourn is like reprinted as a card with a different name. In the new cards in this, we'll find it for you. Luminous Rebuke is Seize the whatever from Duskmourn. Costs 3 less to cast if it targets a tapped creature. Destroy target creature, 5 mana or 2 mana for the tapped. And instant speed. So that's just a reshelled card that we've already seen. But it's effectively a new card for this because it has a new name. These are all pure reprints. My Vegas trip was fun. It was very fun. I liked it a lot. I showed off all my like stuffs in the previous stream, so I don't want to like bore everybody with it again. I showed what I acquired. We did giveaways. I still have another giveaway to do. But yes, it is pretty sweet. Thanks. Yeah, upper mid. And this one, this is going to be upper low, but it could be lower mid depending on how many enchantments and artifacts we see. It doesn't block well unless the opponent's attacking with a bigger creature. It blocks really well against Gruul because they have like 5/3/4/2s, and this is a lovely trade for that. But it doesn't block well against white itself, or really against black mostly, because those things are all small and don't care about trading for this anyway. And in fact, often want to trade for it because they have the dying synergies. So yeah. Healer's Hawk, Flying Lifelink 1/1. And this is going to be extra good in this because remember, white and green have the +1/+1 counter synergies. So this is really good to go Healer's Hawk on turn 1, and then there's other things that will put counters on it if you curve out. So it's really nice. This card is actually going to be a higher pick than normal because of that. Right now, I would put it at a... Hi, Cat. You're such a troublemaker. Right now I would put it at a lower mid pick, but you could see that go up. I don't know how the format's going to look overall. I have seen a few flyers that are on 2 that could block this profitably for a little while, at least before you put counters on it. Okay, Cat, you're just too much trouble, honey. Okay, we're closing the suitcase. You don't get to sit in there anymore. This is why we can't have nice things. Yay. Twit. Okay. All right. I'll just put the suitcase away later today. I was only keeping it open because I had to pull out all the giveaway stuff. Okay. So make your move. I love this card. Like, I think this was great in the format that it was in, because there were a lot of artifacts and enchantments, and there were a lot of creatures with power 4 or greater. I think it's going to be decent here too. It's just really versatile as far as a removal spell. The fact that it has artifact enchantment as well as the reprisal effect, which is the power 4 or greater. This harkens back to So Reprisal originally was in like alliances. So looking at that, there were 2 printings of it, 2 different artworks. It was pretty cool. So that's pretty neat. You can see all the sorts of different artists' interpretations of that here. So, destroy target creature with power 4 or greater. This one had it can't be regenerated. That's what Berry transformed into. And then gradually they decided just destroy because they didn't do regeneration anymore. It was too complicated, apparently. So I do like this card. I think it's a fine removal spell. There are going to be decks that it's not really good. I haven't seen anything about the elections right now. I'm dying inside about like just trying not to think about it. So we have Make Your Move. Mischievous Pop was an interesting one. Flash, when this creature enters, return up to 1 other target permanent you control to its owner's hand. So just like this is going to block well against Gruul. It's going to be a fun one. It's got Flash. The return up to 1 other target permanent you control to its owner's hand is always a really nice effect because it's up to 1, so you can choose none. That's really important. But also you could return, like, if you Banishing Light a creature that doesn't matter later in the game, like you just do it early so that you just don't take a lot of damage early because you don't have a lot of early blockers, you can then pull this Banishing Light off of that creature, basically, back into your hand, and then put it on something else before they get a chance to respond, because this is at flash speed. So, so you flash this in at the end of their turn, untap, put the Banishing Light on something else. But you can also do all sorts of things and reset stuff with ETB effects. So that's really notable because although we haven't seen anything with Flicker yet, we've seen no Flicker effects. There's a lot of really good ETBs in the new stuff, but especially this Guarded Air, right? So 6, create 2 3/3 white night creature tokens, 1/1 lifelink. So if you flicker that back, not flicker, if you bounce it back and then you replay it, you get 2 more, night tokening things, right? So, and then we go, there was another really good one to flicker, sorry, not to flicker, but to bounce. You could bounce your own Big Fin Bouncer and then replay it to bounce another of their creatures. So there's a lot of stuff that you can do with this bounce effect. You were saying, Banishing Light, you still control Banishing Light. If you play Banishing Light on their creature, like I was saying, and then that creature becomes less relevant and you want to put it on a different creature, you can return it to your hand with a pup and replay it. So it's a more useful card than it first looks because it just doesn't block well, and a 3 for a 3/1 is not a good ROI normally. Yeah. So there's good stuff you can do with this card. Pretty sweet. I don't know exactly where it falls in this particular picking order. Right now, I kind of want to say lower mid, but I am not certain. That could go up as we see things go on. We've seen a bunch of things with pretty good ETBs, so it could be mid-mid, but I think it's lower mid. So again, to recap this, I do high, which is usually reserved for the rares and mythics, unless there's something I think is crazy in the uncommons. And then there's middle, and then there's low, and within those I don't really have a letter tier. I like to divide it into high, middle, and low of the mid, and high, middle, and low of the low. So this is going to be the low of the mid, and this is going to be middle of the mid to low of the mid. So I think it's low of the mid, but it could go up to middle of the mid depending. So yeah, incoming ad break in like 58 seconds. Thank you so much for sitting through it. I really appreciate it. It's how the stream can actually be a stream at all. Really, really, really appreciate it. If you'd like to avoid the ads, you can subscribe for free with Prime. If you would like to pay monies, you're welcome to do that too. That's super cool. If you would like to go, and there's other amazing streamers online. I can give you recommendations right now if you'd like to just go somewhere else to avoid the ads. But I think if you leave me on in the background, I still make the monies. I'm not sure, but that would be cool if you feel like it. But yes, sorry for the ads. Always. I really wish I didn't have to run them, but they are the main source of income. So for the stream, otherwise we wouldn't be able to have it at all. So here we go. Resolute Reinforcements, 2 mana for a 1/1 flash. When it enters, create a 1/1 white soldier creature token. You get stuff in white for having creatures enter the battlefield. There's a common 2/3 flyer that allows you to do that. Making tokens is really good for Orzhov in particular, just because the go wide synergies in white are really good on its own, but also with Orzhov because whenever things you control die, you get benefits often. So decent stuff. I would probably pick this as like an upper low to lower mid. It's fine. It's a good 2-drop. It can stop, aggression on the ground while you get in the air. It's a good card. There's the Savannah Lions. This has been there since the beginning. Look at this beauteousness. Look at that beauteousness right there. These were so powerful way back when I was your age. Actually, I didn't do these. The first ones I saw were these, the unlimited and the revised. Lion perfect. No change. So they're bringing back beautiful things. It's a cat, so that is a relevant creature type. It's a 1 mana 2/1. That's nice. Except these days we have 1 mana 2/1s with so many upsides. So just recently we had in Duskmourn the Survivor. Veteran Survivor. 1 mana 2/1 that exiles stuff from your opponent's graveyard. That when it or yours, which if you prefer, like if you just want that last one, so that it gets to be a 5/4 with hexproof. Cause Savannah Lions eat your heart out. Anyway, but this is iconic magic. We have and gorgeous artwork by Winona Nelson, so that's just really cool. So we then have another classic. We have Sarah Angel. Look at this. Look at how many Sarahs we've had. This was my first. Now, Sarah keeps getting printed, of course, but this is part of Magic's lore. She's still around. She's back here. 5 for a 4/4 flying vigilance is still not a bad return on investment. So this is a mid pick to lower mid pick. Well, here, from what I've seen so far, this is actually a mid pick. I don't think it's lower mid. So I think so. Upper mid, could be lower mid, but I think it's going to be upper low. Could be lower mid. I think this is lower mid. This is because it's so good in the format. I think. Make your move. I think this is going to be lower mid. I think lower mid here still, even though it's a cat and very relevant type. But I think this is mid. Stroke of Midnight. Destroy target non-land permanent. Its controller creates a 1/1 white human creature token at instant speed. This was from Wilds of Eldraine, and it was a really good one for really powerful cards. But sometimes that 1/1 white human creature token wasn't... was really bad to give them as well. For a destroy spell. That said, in this format, we'll have to take a look at some of the bombs the more bombs there are, the more this card gets better and better and better. So it's instant speed. It can stop, it can punish people for double blocking, because again, this 1/1 white human creature token will not be in combat. So you can, if you get double blocked, you can kill, you know, one of them, and then they'll just get a 1/1 white human creature token. Or if they have something giant, you just want to kill it. Yay. So it's still a good card. I think I would take the Banishing Light more highly over it. I think this is more of a constructed card often, but it's still good. So I think it's still on the same tier as the Banishing Light. I think it's still an upper mid pick. And remember, only rares and mythics are getting into the high picks, so that's as high as I go. This is for commons and uncommons, these are tops, right? Stroke, Banishing, Angel, Pridemate. So these are good commons and uncommons. Youthful Valkyrie. So this is a reprint that has been a long time coming. This card is super super important for the Angels deck, any EDH decks, and so on and so forth. So whenever another angel you control enters, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. This is going to be there are a bunch of angels, but there aren't necessarily as many as you would want for this to be really good. I think if you get it early, you're really happy. So I think in the first pack, this is a really high pick. I think if you get it later and you already have a lot of angels, it's going to be a really high pick. But I think if you get it late and you don't have a lot of angels, it's still a 1/3 flyer for 2, which is decent and blocks a few of the like blue flyers pretty profitably. But I'm not sure how highly I will pick it later on in packs if I don't have a lot of angels already. So this is one of the cards that will really, you know, vacillate in value and in pick order, depending on what you get. In a sealed pool, if you have a ton of angels, slam this card, right? This is a very good card. It gets to be a very relevant, very scary threat very, very quickly with any angels in your deck, right? But overall, it's because it's a build around, it's going to be really finicky in terms of where to put it in the draft pick order. It really is going to depend on a lot of factors. So do with that what you will. For the pre-release, I would recommend, you know, if you don't have a really good preponderance of angels, consider how many +1/+1 counters you have to put on it anyway. Because like the Healer's Hawk, the Valkyrie can be pumped and become a big threat as well, even if it's not being pumped by your playing angels, right? So Healer's Hawk and Youthful Valkyrie, I'm going to put on the low mid pick to start now. But again, for the same reasons that Hawk is valuable, the Valkyrie is also valuable. It doesn't have lifelink, but it can become a relevant threat quickly, especially if you have +1/+1 counters. And that's if you don't have the angel synergies. Okay, so that's all for the white reprints, it looks like. It's not a lot of them here. So that's pretty sweet. Because we're going to try and get through a lot of this tonight. Because I do not want to stop to think about real world events. Here we go. That's the last of the tea. I will get more. Aegis Turtle! I wonder if we have any do damage equal to the butts that you have. Does anybody know if you have like a does anybody know if you have a does damage equal to the toughness? Yeah, Griddle. Sally, it'll be all right, maybe. Sorry, I have no faith. All right. Yes, it is back in standard. It is back in standard. So yes, so on Ikoria, even the gentlest creatures are constantly evolving, outpacing Tooth and Claw with mighty natural armor. Yeah, try and take a bite of that, sucker. All right. So 0/5 for 1 mana. It's not a wall, but it is it is effectively a wall. So this is a nice one for stopping early aggression in a control deck. It's not entirely unplayable. Not only does it wear +1/+1 counters really well, because look, it can attack. It's not a wall. It doesn't have defender. But it also holds up a lot of the aggression that we've seen. Because remember even the earliest of the green and red 4-power things are on 3 and 2. So this can stop them. It has 5 toughness, provided they don't have a combat trick. But it's a decent blocker, so it's not literally unplayable. I would put it on a middle of the low picks, but it could go up depending on exactly how controlling your deck is. The more controlling your deck is, you're kind of going to want some of these just to hold the ground in the beginning. And then again, if you have +1/+1 counters, like look at this Brineborn Cutthroat right there. Look how they synergize, right? If you have like a bunch of Aegis turtles, or Aegis, I don't even know how to pronounce that. Actually, I've always pronounced it Aegis, but I've never actually Aetherize. Aegis. It's got to be Aegis, right? Aetherize. Anyway, I'm gonna go with Aegis. So if you have like Brineborn Cutthroat out, you flash it. So play this, turn 2, flash this in. On your turn 3, you can hold up an Essence Scatter, and then when you play it, you can put a +1/+1 counter on the Aegis Turtle. That's cool, right? I am so happy that Essence Scatter is uncommon, I cannot tell you. I hate when Essence Scatter is common. I hate it. It makes the format poorer, in my opinion, just because the limited format. Just because having to sit and not be able to play cards, I feel is a rough experience for new players. But we do want, we have some counter spells, so we want players to experience that that's what blue does, right? We want to have that counterspell experience, but we just don't want them to be everything about it, because we want people to be able to play other things as well. So you've noticed that there was a cancel effect that was just slightly better than cancel. There's a new card. Now we have this Essence Scatter. So there's some interesting stuff in here. We've got a few counter spells, but they're not hopefully overly irritating. This one because it's at uncommon, that one because it costs 3. So, and again, remember, counter spells in limited are worse usually, just because they rely on your being ahead or at parity. So they can feel really bad when you're behind. But again, this one being at 2 makes it quite runnable. And the fact that limited relies a lot on creatures rather than like combo spells decks, this is a good counter spell for limited. So, but Aegis Turtle into Brineborn into Essence Scatter is a pretty cool thing. Then you have a 1/6 and you're on your way, right? So this is a better card than it at first appears, is my point. There are decks that can use it. I still think it's a mid-low pick, but like, or upper-low, it depends. Again, I think it maxes out at upper-low because you're gonna see it late, but there you go. So Aetherize, return all attacking creatures to their owner's hand. This is gross at uncommon. It was gross at uncommon when it was first printed. Bouncy, but one-sided. This can win games. Where they attack for lethal, you're like, haha, no. And then you attack for lethal back. So it's a good card. If opponent has 4 mana up in blue, you have to be aware that this is a possibility. And if you try to, it's funny, it can save them from a blowout as well, because we did see a 4 mana white card, 2 and 2 white, so that with a kicker, so there's 1 white, but 2 and a white more if you wanted to make all your creatures indestructible. It made 1 creature indestructible, but it would make all. And so you could save your own creatures theoretically, but unfortunately, then you'd have to replay them in order not to die, probably from the swing back. So, but yes. So this is Aetherized. It is a good card. I would pick it highly. I think this is an upper mid pick, and go from there. Brineborn Cutthroat in a blue deck was really quite strong. Oh wait, it's put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. Sorry, I misread it earlier. I hope you remember to take that back. So put a +1/+1 counter on this creature, not the turtle. Sorry, I thought it was on a creature, but it's on this creature. So this creature starts growing. So apologies. It's the green deck that's gonna, and the white deck that are gonna put +1/+1 counters on other creatures. They have like the supporter bolster or just put +1/+1 counters on target creature, which are interesting. This one just grows on its own. It's just a good 2-drop. It has flash, 2/1, and whenever you cast a spell during an opponent's turn, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. It's a good beater when you're going to be playing at instant speed a lot of the time. So yes. So you're going to prioritize other flash things with it. You're going to prioritize counter magic. You're going to prioritize combat tricks like this or bounce tricks like that. Yeah, just a fun one. I like this card. I think it's a mid pick, but it could be upper mid as well, depending on your deck. Again, this is going to be more about the constitution of your deck than anything, but a 2/1 flash is still just a good card. So I'm going to go with mid to upper mid. Essence Scatter is a probably an mid to upper mid as well. Fleeting Distraction I've never been a huge fan of, but it is a cantrip. It does draw a card. There was something that meaning it replaces itself. So blue, target creature gets -1 must I know. This effect isn't great, but it does draw a card. We've seen something like that, that likes cantrips. And it was in the other prints. So it was in red. So the more of those you have, the more Crackling Cyclops gets better, because that you can give one of their creatures -1, and then you can give this +3/+0, and you can draw a card to replace that card. So it gets better and better with the Cyclops. The other thing is we do have some prowess, which means that so Elementalist Adept gets better with this. Additionally, we have draw a second card per turn effects. So if you use that not on their turn but on yours, you can put a +1/+1 counter out of this, or you could create a 1/1 blue fairy creature token, or you could, I think there was another one somewhere. This one just puts a +1/+1 whenever you draw a card, so you could do it on their turn too. So so there are quite a few ways to maximize this card. I still don't like it very much unless you're very heavily into that mechanic. But there you are. It could turn something around. Combat tricks are way worse now, as we talked about, because of the new combat rule. Because they can then just assign the damage to a different creature. But yeah, there you are. If you're double blocking. But if you're single blocking, and this will still work in theory, Imprisoned in the Moon is now uncommon. It was rare. This is the story highlight where Tamio and Nissa trap Emrakul in the moon. And as far as this is like one of the only pieces of lore that I really like heard about, and it stuck with me. But I heard that it was kind of a suggestion from Emrakul. Like, she said, do this. It's a good removal spell. It does ramp them to some degree, because it makes the creature into a land. But it's a good removal spell for its creature, land, or planeswalker, right? You can turn off one of their colors of mana, maybe. You can actually, can you turn off the colors of mana? I don't know if you can turn off the colors of mana. Yeah, I think you can, because it loses all other abilities. Part of an ability is tap to add this color. So I believe that this turns off, like, I know it turns off, manlands and other things like that, but I think it just turns it into I think you can turn off a color here. Let's look, hold on. Do we have rulings here? Yeah. Okay. No, it retains those types. Yeah, okay, retains those types, but it can't tap for white. Yeah, okay, good. We got it right. All right, so yeah, you can turn off a color. If they have like a splash color, you can target that land. If it was like, if it was a swamp, their only swamp, you'd be like, hey, yeah, colorless land. So you can't stop the number of abilities of like mana added, because this will still add colorless, but you can stop the color black from being able to be added. And you can also do the things, what the Pelucranos. I don't know, we can take a look. We'll get to the rares later. Creature, land, or planeswalker. It turns off planeswalkers. That's less relevant and limited. There are some planeswalkers in this, though. There are some planeswalkers. I have heard that there's a Ajani, Kaito, Lily, Chandra, and Vivian. So, that's gonna be fun. So Imprisoned in the Moon might be a really high pick for blue. And I think it's gonna be an upper mid pick. I could see it being middle of the mids at some point, but like I think this is actually pretty decent. Now remember that with this being in the format at uncommon, there are still Make Your Move and Cathar Commando. Those get more important sometimes to free up your creature that's under that aura. So that's worth remembering. Light Shell Duo, we saw in Bloomburrow. Prowess, when this creature enters, Surveil 2. Surveil 2 is really useful for getting flashback cards in the graveyard to get additional value off of them, and for getting Threshold, which blue and black really care about. So this is pretty nice. It also has Prowess. It's just a decent body. It was fine in Bloomburrow. This is a slower set, so it might actually be much better than it first appears in this set. I think this set is much slower, it looks like to me, as a limited format. So I think this is quite likely to be something that you could pick. I think it's still an upper low pick, but I think it's something that you might not be unhappy to play. So it's still an upper low pick, but it's still, you know, and it's cute. So extra cool. So Micromancer. Now this card was excellent in its set. Hello, Floof. This was excellent in its set because it could find Shore Up and a number of other things, and there was a lot of this was Dominaria United, I believe, and there were a lot of instants and sorceries that it could find that were really good to find. So I mean, it can find Fleeting Distraction. It looks like it can also find an offer you can't refuse. But it's going to be, it can find, we saw that in white. There was a 1 mana, do 3 damage to target attacking or blocking creature, gain 1 life. So it can fetch that up. This had a lot of utility in its set. It remains to be seen exactly how much utility it has in this one, because fetching a Shore Up was really pretty sweet. I haven't seen anything quite so sweet to fetch up. So, but it's still essentially like draw a card if you have enough of the mana value 1 stuff. So I'm going to currently rate it middle of the mid pick, but like in its set it was upper mid. It was definitely a really good pick often. So we'll see about whether that's gonna bear out here too, but for now I'm gonna go middle of the mid. Mocking Sprite, flying fairy thing, instant and sorcery spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. This is from Wilds of Eldraine. 3 mana 2/1 that makes your instants and sorceries cheaper. It flies. It's a fine card. It's an upper low pick slash yeah. Once we get to the like lowest of the low is, by the way, unplayable, absolutely unplayable. This is an upper low pick. I don't know exactly how great it's going to be, but we've got this Tolarian Terror. I just saw that. Tolarian Terror makes the instants and sorcery stuff really interesting. The Fleeting Distraction, the Micromancer, the Mocking Sprite, and the Terror are all interesting. I haven't seen anything that sort of like is a better cantrip than this to really make those work, but we'll see. All right, so Mocking Sprite, upper low pick, an offer you can't refuse. This is more of a competitive card than anything. I don't really like it in I don't really like it in draft and limited. There are some times when, you know, obviously there's, you know, a kill spell on your creature And then like if you're going to win the game, this might be something to run if you have like a bomb that you just really want to protect. But ramping them for 2 is usually not worth it unless you're literally going to win the game very soon. So I take this pretty low on the pick order. So I think this is probably an upper low pick. But in constructed, it's pretty darn cool. So, yay. Run away together. Choose 2 target creatures controlled by different players. Return those creatures to the owner's hand. So still we're seeing bounce and we're not seeing flicker. This still has utility. You can get value out of one of your creatures again, and you know, put away, like tempo them. So it's nice. It's useful. It's not going to be a high pick for me. It's going to be an upper low, but it's still useful. Because again, you have to choose 2 targets. If you do not have a target on your side, you can't use the spell. So, worth noting. Self-reflection, 6 mana, create a token that's a copy of target creature you control. Flashback 4. Now, the flashback cost is where this card really shines. So it belongs, it works best in a self-mill. The black has a lot of self-mill, and the blue surveil, right, that we've seen here. This is really a black-blue card, in my opinion. I don't think it belongs pretty much in any other deck. It's just too difficult to have really work out. But the best things to do are copy things that have ETBs or just a really good card. It depends if you have a bomb, and if you have a ton of ways to surveil it into the graveyard. At 6, it's probably not worth paying this for this, but at 3, plus a blue, so 4, it's probably a deal, especially if you can get value on it out of the graveyard. So, seems pretty good for that. So it's still, for me, it's an upper low to lower mid pick, because again, I have to make a lot of things happen for that to be good. Spectral Sailor, great limited card, absolutely fun, lovely. I think this is the upper mid pick. I really love, so flash, Spirit Pirate, flying, 1 mana, 1/1, then you can pay 4 to draw a card. That changes so many things late game. It's just a fine early attacker. Again, it's something you can put +1/+1 counters on. It is pretty nice. So, pretty sweet. Think twice. So, yeah, it's just, yeah. And the artwork's spectacular. So, what can you complain about? Okay, thinking twice here. Think twice. All right. Draw a card, flashback. Okay, so the flashback's nice. It's also an instant sorcery you can mill into the graveyard for the Tolarian Terror, or play early so that you can get the Terror out sooner. It works well with those types of decks. It triggers Prowess. It triggers it's a cantrip for the rather expensive cantrip for the that Cyclops that we were talking about. It enables the spells deck a little bit there. So for me, I'm not going to be taking too many of these unless I'm in that deck. Because I don't think it's really going to be... Oh, wait. Sorry. It triggers all the, like, draw when you draw a second card per turn as well, if you play it on your turn, if you don't care about playing it as an instant. So that's nice, too. So if you have a bunch of those cards as well, that will enable those cards, so you can think about more of those there. But for me, it's an upper-low pick. It can be lower-mid or mid-mid even in certain spells deck matters. Okay. Tolarian Terror, it's great if you can build around that stuff. It's great if you can build around it. I don't know that this particular set has enough of the ways to enable it. Dominator United has so many with that Balmor deck. The red-blue deck was so good with this card. We'll see how this goes. It was like an upper mid pick in those decks. So, I don't know whether it gets there. I'm going to tentatively say lower mid to mid for now. I don't know. I don't know yet. I just haven't seen enough of what I would want to see for it to be great. Like if this were like -2/-0 and draw a card, like I'd be like, yeah, terror, yeah, all of these. But it's -1/-0. Anyway. And all the things that say draw a second card, so you have to do it on your turn, so you don't really want to play it on their turn. Yeah, anyway. Moving along. Witness Protection. Loses all abilities and is a green-white citizen creature with base power and toughness 1/1 named Legitimate Business Person. I am a legitimate business person, I promise. So this is a good card. It's not quite as good, I think. I really like the new one that makes it an 0/2 with no abilities. I like that new one from Duskmourn, but because this still gives it a little bit of power. But there we are. But it's a good removal spell for blue. That's what blue does these days, is it sort of transforms it into something useless. Yay. It is another enchantment, so again, remember the Make Your Move and Cathar Commando being important to stop your opponent's removal in white and blue. So yeah, interesting things. So this is going to be probably a lower mid pick to upper low. It's a decent piece of removal, but it's not fantastic. Bacon to a Pie is back, and we on to black. Hi, Floof. Hi. Yes, meow to you too. All right, so Bacon to a Pie. Destroy target creature. Create a food token. It's a good return on investment. It's instant speed removal. It's double black investment, but it's really, really good. I usually take these upper mid to middle of the mid picks. I just think it's a really good removal spell. It was best in its in Throne of Eldraine. So because the food tokens were so relevant, it's still relevant here, I feel. Just being able to get, the artifact with sacrifice, gain 3 life seems pretty sweet. There are ways that you can sacrifice various things and use food in this, and that's gaining 3 life. So the life gain decks want this. It's just a really good card. I think it's upper mid. I would be willing to hear mid, but I think it's upper mid. Burglar Rat. When this creature enters, each opponent discards a card. In a deck with so much flashback and so much threshold, this actually gets a little worse. I normally really like this card to some degree in limited, just as an early creature that disrupts stuff and can be sacrificed later for value. But it loses some of its utility when they can discard a card with flashback or can discard a card in order to enable threshold synergies. I think it's still fine for the same reasons as above, but I think it's an upper low pick as opposed to anything higher. Diregraph Ghoul. This creature enters tapped. 1 mana 2/2. This has been around forever. It's a good card. But it looks at Savannah Lions and is like, why must I come into play tapped? Well, because you have 1 extra toughness. And you have a relevant creature type. Zombie is really, really relevant, usually in all sorts of formats. I'm not sure about this one. How dare... Stop it. Get down. Good boy. He's found something else to chew on. Because reasons. Hello, cat. Please stop being destructo boy. All right. Okay, so this card is good. It's just a good early aggressive play. It can be sacked once it becomes no longer valuable on the field, like when it's not relevant. It can still block. It just untaps the next turn. Blah blah blah. I know some people who look at it are like, oh, it can absolutely block. It's just enters tap. That's all. We'll see whether there are a lot of Zombies Matter cards. Somebody was saying that there might be. We'll take a look as it goes along. But again, like Burglar Rat, remember, disrupt hand. Here's Eaten Alive, right? Sacrifice a creature or pay 3 and a black in addition to your black. So 5 if you don't sacrifice a creature, and 1 if you do, to exile something. That's really nice because, again, we don't want flashback. We don't want it to be adding to the threshold. We don't want it to be doing anything. We want it gone. And this can target creature or planeswalker, which is really nice, but that makes the Burglar Rat and the Diregraph Ghoul more relevant. This is what I'm talking about when you use it later to sacrifice it for something relevant to happen. So I always really liked this. It's a mid pick. You don't want too many of these because, again, it's expensive for removal if you don't have a creature to sack. There are certain decks that want more of them, certain decks fewer. But so the Diregraph, I would go mid. Same with this. This is still upper low. Exsanguinate. Best in Commander, best with multiplayer because each opponent loses X life and you gain life equal to the life lost this way. It is still a life like a drain, so it's still a good card. It's a 2 commitment to black rather than drain life, the original. Which was this lovely thing here. So you had 1 and a black, and then you played X, right? But it had to be spent in black. So yeah, it was pretty cool. And it limited you because you couldn't drain more than the creature's toughness. This doesn't target a creature. That's a difference. And this one, you don't have to pay all black mana. You gain life equal to life lost this way. So it's also a life gain card. So again, Orzhov likes it. Any life gain deck likes it that's playing black. And it may be able to kill your opponent if you have enough X. So ramp decks might want one. It's a pretty good card. I would go mid to lower mid on this, but you could go higher in certain decks. Fake your own death is a nice combat trick. Sometimes we've had stuff like this a lot of the time. Until end of turn, target creature gets +2/+0 and gains. When this creature dies, return it to the battlefield tapped under its owner's control, and you create a treasure token for 2 mana instant speed. This is from Outlaws of Thunder Junction. Remember that if you have a face down creature, it'll come back in face up. So I don't know that I've seen any face down creatures, but because I think they might have been trying to avoid messing with the rules around that for foundations on new players. But it's an interesting card. It just means you get that ETB again, and you might be able to win some combats with it. So it's an upper low pick to mid. It depends on to middle low. It depends on how you really want to rate this. A lot of the times you want to do recursion rather than protection, so give and take for that. Hey, Go Gatewatch, I'm doing okay. How are you? I'm deliberately not thinking is what I'm doing about anything but Magic. And food. I'm thinking about food. Food is delicious. Hero's Downfall. Great removal spell. Destroy target creature and planeswalker. Removing planeswalkers is relevant. This is going to be an upper mid pick. It's just going to be important as a removal spell. Instant speed, 3 mana. A little bit of a commitment to black with the double black pips. But there we are. Yeah, you too? Yeah. So now we have the Macabre Waltz. So 2 mana, return up to 2 target creature cards from your graveyard to the hand, then discard a card. This is really lovely late game, not so great early usually, except that we do have flashback and we have threshold. So this gets better in this set than in many sets it's been in the past. Or at least many sets recently. We haven't had flashback, and that's hey, Miss Soap, nice to see you. Hi, Stu. Thank you so much for your support of the stream. Yeah, we're trying to focus on anything. Just like okay. So I don't climb the walls. So here we go. You got the shirt. Congratulations. That's wonderful. You're so welcome. You're so welcome. I hope you like it. I hope it fits well. I hope the logo's good. Some of the times when we work with Magic Jank is working with people to generate the shirts, sometimes the logos look a little off, but hopefully it worked out. But yeah, so this is a decent card late. It's not usually going to be as good early, unless you prioritize that card that I was saying I really like in black, which was the 2/3 flyer that has threshold, but when it comes into play, you mill 3 cards. That can be a nice way to get the Waltz online, get some value by getting 2 creature cards back, discarding a land or a card with flashback, or just a card that you don't really need that's going to help your creatures get threshold. So I think this card is an upper low to lower mid pick, depending. Yeah. It's not as good as some of the effects like this, but it's pretty decent for what this set seems to want to do. Okay, Marauding Blight Priest. Whenever you gain life, each opponent loses 1 life. So in a dedicated life gain deck, this can be pretty darn powerful. Other than that, meh. So this is an upper low pick, perfectly playable, just not exciting at all. Pilfer. I'm okay. So again, in general, like discard effects, I am lower on than many other people in limited. Here's why. I feel that if you are spending a card to not impact the board, and you are likely to whiff, right? That's a problem. You are down on value at that point. So like you when you would rather draw anything else, just something creature to put on the board, removal spell, anything. I think that can be a real drawback. So cards like Duress, where you could just not hit, right? Ostracize, which removes a creature from their hand, things like that. Usually I'm not happy with those. Pilfer and Agonizing Remorse can hit anything, any non-land card, right? That makes them better to start with, right? Because they're not saying okay creature or okay spell, and if they don't have one of those in hand, that's a problem, right? This is a problem late when if they have no hand, or if they have only lands in hand, obviously a problem. The information you gain is valuable. Like having full information about your opponent's hand is absolutely valuable, right? But so Pilfer and Antagonizing Remorse are or Agonizing Remorse, sorry, Agonizing Remorse are the best of the versions of these 4 limited. However, that said, it's still a 1-for-1 that you play. Like you take a card out of your hand on a turn where you have the impetus, you have the ability to act, right? To attack, to do all sorts of things, right? And you take a card out from their hand on a part of a turn that doesn't matter as much for them. So that's why I'm not a huge fan of these cards. You're losing, you're down a card not to impact the board at a time where you should be active, and so on and so forth. So like I'll stop with that for now, but like it's really important to note in this set that these are worse now too because of the flashback and because of the threshold. Now, this card's not worse because of the flashback necessarily, because you can take something without flashback. You can just choose. But it is worse because of the threshold. Now, you'll note that it was downgraded to common from uncommon. It was uncommon in the previous set that it was printed in. It depends on how much you value having that information when this card appears, whether it appears early or late, right? Because late it's so much worse. And how much you value basically the information that you're gaining and that one card. I like it in best of 3 if you know that they have a bomb. And I like it on the draw rather than play usually. And I like it in more controlling decks. But But overall, I really think these effects aren't worth running. Now, you saw that we had one card that I really loved. I really loved in black. It was the 2 mana, 1 black. You could choose to mind rot, or you could choose to -1/-1 everything. And the versatility on that one is really good. It's really good, especially with the new combat rule. Because it's 2 cards for 1. Number 1, right? You still run into the problems of them putting something with flashback in the graveyard or filling up for threshold. But it's 2 cards, which really disrupts a plan. And it's... but it is also, you can choose to do something else with it, which is give everything -1/-1 to your opponent's creatures. So that's very useful in this. We've seen a lot of 1 toughness things, etc. So, and it makes and like I said, the new combat rule makes that so much more powerful. So, so yeah. So I'm not a fan of this card. I'm going to rank it as, middle of the low, like not even upper low, but that's me. If this is your type of card, go for it. I'm just not going to pick this highly at all. I think it's nearly unplayable for this. Now, this may change once, like I said, best of 3, it's playable, absolutely. Especially if you know they have a bomb, if you're prepared for stuff. But I think in a vacuum, when you don't know like what they have, what's going on, whether you're on the play, when you're on the draw, I think it's not worth running. I'm ready to be wrong. So, here we go. Reassembling Skeleton. 2 mana, 1/1. 1 and a black. Return this card from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. This can be a nice way to just keep getting value off of sacrificing something to draw a card. We've seen several things that do that in black. So this is actually going to be a really like a mid pick to lower mid pick. Because it blocks forever anything that doesn't have trample on the ground, and it sacrifices for the value, because there's several things where you can sacrifice to draw a card, a creature to draw a card, and get other value out of it, and drain opponents with the Zulaport Cutthroat New Vampire. So yeah, so this is a value card in a bunch of decks for this. Okay, Stromkirk Blood Thief. The beginning of your end step, if an opponent lost life this turn, put a +1/+1 counter on target vampire you control. Oh my god, Nighthawk's back. Sorry, I got distracted. This is a good card for vampires. You'll notice whenever you gain life, each opponent loses 1 life. So if you put both of these in the life gain deck, you're doing pretty well. This is also good, though, because you can just attack, right? And this will trigger. Its stats are really low for what it is. Like 3 mana for a 2/2, not great. But because you can have such explosive starts, if you can get in for a damage and then play this, you can get that +1/+1 counter and keep getting it if you can keep doing damage. So it can be quite useful. You put a +1/+1 counter on target vampire, it's always going to be it. If you don't have another vampire, it's worth remembering. So if it gets put under like an enchantment removal spell, you're going to be sad, but there we are. If you don't have another vampire that's been pumped. So remember to diversify your threats. But yeah, so this one I would take low mid to mid sometimes. This is an upper mid. This card is dumb. It always has been. Vampire Nighthawk, my friends. There isn't a braid in the set, so that does make this slightly worse. But yeah. Vampire Nighthawk is a lovely thing to then get in and then follow up with this, right? That's beautiful. Even though you're not maximizing the use of your mana, but Vampire Nighthawk is super sweet. So, Flying Death Touch Lifelink 2/3 for 3, just a great card, and such an iconic part of Magic. Great artwork. There you go. Nighthawk is an upper mid pick, one of the better cards. There you go. Perfect. Zombify. A good card in this because, again, so much mill, and you can mill good cards that you want to get back. So Zombify for 4 mana. Used to be common, actually. Printed at common, I think. It was printed on uncommon for a while, but it might actually have been printed at common once, I think. Zombify. Let's check. Might have always been uncommon? Maybe all uncommon. Yeah, even M25 was... Yeah, it's always uncommon. Okay. So it's uncommon. It's good. You don't want too many of them necessarily, unless again you have a lot of the surveil slash mill. Again, best in blue black most likely. Although you know some combinations of like green black will probably be perfectly happy with it too. So I like this at mid pick. I don't think I want too many of them because again you've got to get the great creatures in the graveyard first. You got to make sure you have the mill and stuff. And things dying, and a good thing to get back. If all your creatures are tiny and returning it for 4 mana is bad, that just doesn't make sense. So if you have nothing to get back that would justify this cost, right? You have to consider. All right, so Zombify really good too, but not as good as that. Abrade, great card. This is going to be an upper mid pick. It's just a really good card. 3 damage to target creature, instant speed 2. That's fine. This is good in this. It's really good against Gruul. So and it's got some really good applications. Obviously we can see killing this is really important. So and destroying target artifact, we haven't really hit the artifacts yet that much. There were a few that were newly printed, but not many. So destroying target artifact, 3 damage to target creature. Okay. Yeah, take this card. Okay. Axguard Cavalry. That was from Kaldheim, I think. The Dwarf Berserker, 2 mana, 2/2. Riding the Goat. A foolhardy act of bravery. I liked this card in Kaldheim because there were a lot of things that, given haste, could just really push the game fast. The bigger creatures. I think it's actually going to be really important for red in this too, just because red seems to be all about those 4-power creatures. And giving a 4-power creature haste on 3 is actually quite nice. I think this will be best in Gruul for that reason. So this is pretty sweet. I haven't noticed that we have any like heroic effects, meaning whenever you target this creature, it does things. I haven't noticed, but there might be a few. If there are, this gets even better. Because again, it targets and can recurringly target. But this is just a nice 2/2 bear with upside. I like it. So this is going to be an upper low pick. It could graduate to lower mid if you're in Gruul. Brazen Scourge. This was a fun one. It's a gremlin. It is a commitment to red, but it's a 3/3 haster for 3. In its set, which I think was Aether Revolt, it was pretty good. Could lead to really pretty fast starts. I don't think I have really anything more to say that. I think it's a mid pick to lower mid. It's not one of the best, but it's not bad. Burst Lightning is a good card. 2 damage to any target. So that's the shock. Plus, if you kick, it deals 4 damage instead. This is a good card. It's going to be a mid pick to upper mid pick, depending. I think I want to start off with mid, but it's just a good card and removal spell. It's not going to be as good, obviously, as a 5, like as a few of the other things, but it does kill early threats, and that's really important. Have I seen any reprints or that may be too problematic or ban candidates? I haven't looked at the rares and mythics yet. I don't think any of the uncommons and commons are going to hit that particular threshold. Fanatical. So this is just a good card. This is a really good card. It's 2 damage to any target, so it is just better than a shock. Burst Lightning is a classic and wonderful. So yeah. Fanatical Firebrand, 1 mana, 1/1 Goblin Pirate. Haste, tap, sacrifices creature, it deals 1 damage to any target. It's a fine early drop. It's if Goblin creature type is relevant, it's going to be really important. It's nice to be able to do 1 damage to any target because there are a lot of 1 toughness creatures, hence the creature next to it, for example. So yeah, Burst Lightning is back, baby. I love that Magic is doing this. This is just such a cool look at past cards, and good new cards, and a sort of a big gathering of no pun intended, of sort of what makes Magic. I like it. I like it a lot. I think I've loved so far what I've seen as far as creating a sense of Magic over its history. I like it. So Fanatical Firebrand, I think I'm gonna go with upper low pick. But it could be mid-low pick, depending. I haven't seen exactly how this is going to work yet. Firebrand Archer, 2 mana, 2/1. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, this creature deals 1 damage to each opponent. That's going to go in that spells deck. It does surprising amounts of work. Remember in Two-Headed Giant, if you're playing Two-Headed Giant, this is a really good spell because it deals to each opponent. So you really would want this in Two-Headed Giant. It's pretty sweet. So pretty good. So it goes in the spells decks. It's not great in others. It's fine. This one's from Amonkhet or Hour, I forget. But pretty decent thing. Okay. I think it's gonna be upper end of low. Could graduate a little higher in those spells deck. Okay. Fire Spitter Whelp, 3 mana, 2/2 flyer. Whenever you cast a non-creature or dragon spell, this creature deals 1 damage to each opponent. Okay, those are both nice together. So go this one into this one and then just start casting non-creature spells. Cool. This is a 2/2 flyer for 3, which isn't great for red. We have seen a little bit better in the past. I think. But not at uncommon. So this is just, yeah, I like this card a lot. I think this card's great for the spells deck. I don't think it's fantastic otherwise. I think it's a mid pick, but it could definitely be upper mid pick if you're already sort of in the spells deck. It's a sweet little card. I like this. In subsequent terms, first-year students were prohibited from enrolling in Introduction to Dragon Keeping. Frenzied Gobbo. So red, whenever this creature attacks, you may pay red. If you do, target creature can't block this turn. This is a nightmare in limited. This is actually quite lovely. For the Gruul decks, especially. Any sort of really aggressive deck really wants this card. I think that this is a mid pick, but it can be upper mid depending on where you are already with your deck. I think it's mid for now, though. It's just a nice card. It enables you to get in for damage so frequently. It's not as good against token decks, needless to say. But you can usually, at least make sure that your creatures trade profitably, like trade well with stuff by just stopping the big thing from blocking. Goblin Surprise, 3 mana instant. So this is another instant for the spells deck, which is pretty sweet. And it has the hey, your door's broken. It has the versatility of being able to do the Trumpet Blast, which is creatures you control get +2/+0 until end of turn. Note that they don't have to be attacking, so you don't get to like mess up that way, right? A lot of the Trumpet Blasts were like attacking creatures, like those types of effects. A lot of them were like attacking creatures you control get +2/+0 until end of turn. So if you played it and you hadn't declared attackers yet, didn't matter. This one avoids that pitfall. You can play it at any point and still have it affect your creatures. Create 2 1/1 red goblin creature tokens is the other choice, and it's a good choice. I like this. I like this really good for the spells deck, and it's fine for like surprising somebody with some blockers. It's really nice because it has that versatility. If we have like goblin type things, payoffs for kindred type stuff, it's definitely gonna be a really big thing. I think it actually could be a for like Boros, I think it's gonna be a higher pick. So I think it's an upper low, but it could be a lower. It could graduate to a lower mid pick in certain decks, the spells deck and the Boros deck, etc. And especially if you find any goblin synergies. So yeah, this is a really nice card. I like this card. Heartfire Immolator has always been good. It's a 2 mana 2/2 human wizard. Wizard is a relevant creature type. We've seen that for the blue. There was a draw 3 in blue that got cheaper for every wizard you controlled. So that was pretty sweet. This has prowess, and you can pay red and sacrifice it to deal damage equal to its power to target creature planeswalker. So this is good for the prowess decks, the red blue. It's really good for the red black Rakdos if you can sack. If you have the sacrifice in black, or payoffs for sacrificing creatures or creatures dying, seems nice. I really like this card. For me, this is an upper mid pick because it's a creature that doubles as a removal spell. So for 3 mana, you can pay 2 to a target creature or planeswalker. Really, really important. This is an upper mid pick for me. I really like this card. I might be overvaluing it, but I've always loved that card in the format that it was in. We'll see whether this format is as kind. Hidetsugu's Second Right. 4 mana. Oh my god, really? Really? This is going to give me conniptions. I'm going to be so afraid against any red deck of hitting 10 life. We have ways of making target player lose 1 life. We've seen that in the red here. And sorry, the black, with the red. You could do this. So Rakdos would do... So we could drain them for 1. Sorry, not drain. Just make them lose 1 in increments. But only if you gained life. That's best in black. So Mardu could run this. And maybe manipulate the life total well enough. Otherwise, you have to get lucky. I'm going to lose this card more than I want. I'm going to not take it very highly because that kind of, like a dead card in hand for that long might be a problem. It might be more of a trap than anything, but I'm probably going to lose to it a lot. I know I'm going to lose to that. So I'm going to go with upper low pick. I think you could play it. I just don't know whether I have that kind of luck to draw it when I want to draw it and then be able to navigate the game so they have exactly 10. It does nothing if they have more life. So if they can gain life in response, like, or if they lose life in response, it's a bit of a problem. So I feel like this is a trap. I really want to rate it unplayable, but I know I'm going to die to it, so we'll see. I'm going to go with middle of the low, actually. I'm sorry, I just, I can't see this working for me, although I'm pretty sure it's going to work for other people. Anyway, all right. So Involuntary Employment, 4 mana, 3 in a red. This was uncommon from Streets of New Capenna. Gain control of target creature until end of turn is a threat and effect. Untap that creature. It gains haste until end of turn. Create a treasure token. The reason this was uncommon in its set is there were so many sacrifice effects in Rakdos. Here it is not. It's 4 mana, sorcery speed, gain control of it, untap it, haste, treasure token. And the treasure tokens were so relevant at the time too. So we have a few sacrifice effects in black. I haven't seen another active treason type effect. I'm usually I'm more likely to take active treason effects if they are 2 mana plus a red, so 3 mana total. Even if they have slight extra effects like create a treasure token or like the other one recently had a draw discard, I think, or discard draw. I think it was discard draw. But that one was 3 mana. I think this is a upper end of low. I think it's playable, especially if you want to ramp to the 5th mana and just get in for some damage. I think there is some sacrifice in this. So there's one free one that we saw in the new cards, and there's a couple where you can sacrifice by paying. So yeah. I think I'm going to go with upper end of low. Seismic Rupture. 3 mana, deals 2 damage to each creature without flying. So the bigger Gruul decks are probably going to want this to make sure that they can... And like the red-blue flyers, if you have that, they're going to want this card to buy time against super aggressive decks. It's more of a sideboard card than anything. And against white especially, it's going to be very good. And Orzhov pretty good as well. So yeah, it's more of a sideboard card. It's going to be an upper low pick for me, but it might go up in my estimation depending on the format. If they get off to a really fast start, you're gonna want this card. It's like a pyroclasm, but not for creatures with flying, obviously. Yeah. We'll see how that goes. Anyway, Sheevan Dragon is back! It is uncommon! How far you have fallen, my friend. At one point, this was a very, very sought-after card. It's still a decent card. It's still a 6-mana 5/5 flying dragon with fire breathing, which is this mountain for +1/+0. But it's an uncommon. I mean, I'm gonna go with lower mid pick. You don't want too many of these, but it's still a good card. It's decently statted for what I've seen from this set. See how it goes. Spitfire Lagak. 4 mana, 3/4. Whenever a land you control enters, this creature deals 1 damage to each opponent. That's incidental damage. I haven't seen a lot of land fetch or ways to put multiple lands into play each turn. So I'm gonna really put this on the like middle of the low to upper low. I think the stats aren't necessarily where you want to be in red. The incidental damage is interesting. This is more interested in 2-headed giant because, again, it's to each opponent than it is in, like, 1v1. But it's still pretty low for me. Sure Strike. Sure Strike is a nice combat trick. +3/+0 and gains first strike until end of turn. Instant speed. So there you go. That's a fine combat trick in red. Learn to expect it. Nobody expects the Sure Strike. Okay, sorry. It's a fine combat trick. It's still not really high overall. However, remember that the spells deck is interested in it because there is that the Cyclops again, which gets +3/+0 when you cast this, but then it would also get another +3/+0 and gain first strike, so it can attack for a lot of damage pretty quickly. So if they choose not to block it because they don't think you have a spell, then you can actually do some real damage. It's a upper end of low pick, perfectly playable, not terribly exciting. There are certain decks there it's gonna graduate a little higher. So, Thrill of Possibility, the normal one, discard a card, draw 2 cards. This is gonna be great in the draw 2, because you can draw 2 on their turn as well. So you can pump those creatures that say, or get the value out of drawing an additional card per turn. So this is your second card per turn. So this definitely goes in those. It also goes in the spells deck. It discards a card, so it fills up, like for blue-red, the spells deck, it still fills up for Threshold, which a lot of the blue cards have. So yeah, good card in those. Still an upper end of low pick for me for that. But because you can usually get these pretty easily. Yeah, decent. You can discard a card with flashback, or you can discard a card you don't need, obviously. Affectionate Indrik, it's back! It gives cuddles that you die from. Cute. This is a 6-mana 4/4. When it enters, you can have it fight target creature you don't control. So they're gonna fight, not punch. So it's important to note that. It's a decent card. 6 mana, it's a little costly, so I'm gonna put it at a mid pick to low mid pick. But it's a decent card. It's well statted, I think, for this, but 6 mana is a lot. So yeah. You could probably kill something relevant, I think. Alright, Bite Down. Great. Take it. Upper mid pick for green, obviously. I think that's just a nice card. Target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to target creature or planeswalker you don't control. Very, very important. Instant speed. So it's a punch spell to a planeswalker or creature. And instant is so important here. Planeswalkers may be relevant because there are 5 of them. So yay. Very important. I like it. Good green removal spell. Upper mid pick. Okay. Blanchwood Armor. 3 mana. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1 for each forest you control. So the more focused you are on mono green, the better this gets. Usually, though, it will pump something really importantly. and sorry, a lot, which is really important. And so you can use this to sometimes win the game. You'll want to play it on a flyer or something with trample, or something with some kind of evasion, like obviously the flying or the menace that we saw given by that 4 mana, so 3 in a red, 3/4 that when you attack your target creature gains +1/+1 menace until end of turn. So this goes very well with that in the Gruul, but again, on flyers, it can work for blue-green, etc. So I think this is a lower mid pick, because again, auras are very, very difficult to justify. As we said before, you're risking a 2-for-1, because if they remove it in response, you're losing 2 cards. So you're targeting it. So you want to make sure you use this at the opportune time. But it is a cool card. And I have lost to it before. I've been abyssed by it because I couldn't find removal in time, of course, because they're huge at that point usually, if the person has prioritized green in their deck, and has drawn a lot of forests. So yeah, usually at least it's post 3/3, often by like turn 5 or so. So yeah, and if they're mono green, this gets better and better, of course. So the last set that it was in, I think, was Brothers War. And you could actually do some monocolor green decks in that. So we'll have to see how easy it is to stay monocolored or to prioritize one color over another to really evaluate whether this card is where I'm placing it. It could go up much higher if it's really easy to get mono stuffs. Okay. Or to heavily prioritize one color and just a real slight splash of another. Okay. Broken Wings. Destroy target artifact, enchantment, or creature with flying. A lot of the times green kind of really wants this because of the versatility of it. Destroy target creature with flying can be very relevant. There are a lot of flyers in this. I love it as a sideboard card, so best of 3, it's pretty important to pick this when you're drafting. Like one of, they'll come around, so you should be able to get one, but it's important to prioritize it. In best of 3, because artifact and enchantment or creature with flying, because remember, we've seen the enchantment based removal in both white and blue, and we haven't seen any really decent artifacts yet, but we'll see when we get to that coming up soon. But creatures with flying we're often really weak to when we're running green, so this is a pretty versatile spell that we might want to have. It's a it's an a middle end of low pick or upper end of low pick in best of 1, but it kind of can graduate to a lower end of mid pick in best of 3 if you don't have one yet. So it does matter. Bushwhack is great. Not only is it oh wow, it's been downgraded to common. It's not only is it, fixing because you can go find a basic land and make sure you hit your land drops and specifically find a color that you need, but you could also use it instead for fights target creature you don't control. Really great card. I like this card. This is a mid pick for me. I like that card. Dwynen has been downgraded to uncommon. This is in Elf Lord, 2 and 2 green for a 3/4 reach elf. That gives other elves you control +1/+1, and whenever it attacks, you gain 1 life for each attacking elf you control. Now, this is a way that you could possibly put together a green-white life gain deck a little bit and enable your life gain synergies in the white. So that's sweet. You do need to have other elves with it. I suspect that the reason that it's uncommon is probably a combination of the fact that it's a legendary creature for limited, a combination of the fact that it's a legendary creature and that I haven't seen that many elves. I've seen a few, and we've seen 2 here, Llanowar Elves and Dwynen's Elite. But I think this is something you can start with it and build around it, or you can pick it up once you have a bunch of elves, because it may come around. I'm not sure. 3/4 for 4 is not unbelievable stats in green, so that's why this is not necessarily, and it's going to gain 1 for it's self-attacking, obviously. So it's not unbelievable. So I think it's a mid pick. But again, if you already have elves, or if you get it early, I think it becomes a higher pick, meaning upper mid. Dwynen's Elite if you have to control another elf for this to create the 1/1 green elf warrior creature token. So it's a fine bear with upside. If you already have elves, you take it much more highly. This used to be uncommon. I think again, if you're like picking these Llanowar elves left and right, then of course you're going to be taking these. I think it's still I think I want to say upper end of low. Whereas this is like the Llanowar elves are going to be lower end of mid, I think. They might even be middle of the mid. So prioritize these elves over those. This is still good. Creates a token. There are token synergies. Obviously, there are elf synergies amongst these. You just have to make sure you get them all. So going to be better in draft than sealed, so you can build around it and specifically pick the elves. And you might just get lucky in sealed and have a ton of elves. Great, but that's that. Okay. Garruk's Uprising, still uncommon enchantment. This is going to be really good in the Gruul decks because we have a lot of cheap power 4 or greater things. You get to draw a card if you already control a creature with power 4 or greater when this comes into play. And it gives all creatures you control trample. That's really key. We've been looking for that. Whenever a creature you control with power 4 or greater enters, draw a card. This is a nice way for you to generate value over time in that Gruul deck. I don't know that I would run it in anything else other than like green or Gruul, because there's so much that really rewards you for doing that here. But it depends obviously on the constitution of your deck and how many power 4 or graders. But the trample is so important because a lot of the 4 power creatures and 5 power creatures that we saw in Gruul don't have trample. Only like one of them that we saw like had trample. And so this is really key for that, getting through for those damage points. It's really, really key because there's so many like tokens that can just block your 5/3s, or 2/2s that can block your 5/2s or 4/2s, and you're just like, this sucks. I'm not even getting through for damage and my things are trading down. So like it's really important, I think, this card. So I'm gonna take this. If I'm already in Gruul, I'm gonna take this very, very highly. If I'm not in Gruul yet, I'm probably going to put this on the low mid pick. So it depends on how many creatures with the 4 or greater you have. You really have to have a preponderance of that. And a lot of them have to be early to really make this work. Because if you're just playing a late big creature and then you get a Garruk's Uprising and then no more, late big creatures, it's a little slow. So you have to keep those in mind. So Giant Growth, plus 3/3 until end of turn. Classic. I have a favorite art for that. And it isn't this one that they printed, sadly. It is this one. This is my favorite. Let's find the actual set that it was first printed in. There it is. Isn't that glorious? The mouse is like, so what of it? It's so good. It's so good. I wish they had used that one. Ah, man. Because like a bear's already big. There's no like humor to that and fun to that. Whereas this one's like, hello, dragon. I'm a mouse the size of a tree. So yeah. Magic is wonderful. Okay, sorry. Okay, so Giant Growth Classic. You can win a game with it. Like, just, put it on the unblocked thing. It's good with that red spells card. I just still don't want to run the spells card in this, the Cyclops in this. But it's just a nice way to get through for damage to protect your creature. Do remember the new combat rules do make it worse. When multi-blocking. All right, Gnarlid Colony. 2-mana 2/2, which has Kicker, which for 3, so 5 mana total. If the creature was kicked, it enters with 2 +1/+1 counters on it, and it gives each creature you control with +1/+1 counter on it trample. So if you pay, even if you just play it as a 2 later on, and you have a couple creatures with +1/+1 counters, they now have trample, and that changes the combat math for an opponent who was counting on blocking those giant creatures with 1/1s, right? because they're gonna trample over. So this is a really nice way to give other creatures trample in a green-white deck, for example, where counters matter. And again, you can also, it has the versatility of being able to pay 5 for a 4/4 with trample itself. So I like this card. It's really versatile. I think this is a great card to put in decks. It's also, you know, useful early and late, as we said, in both forms to some degree now, because counters do matter in green and white. And so the it also matters a little bit in blue. We saw a couple things with blue that had counters on them. The brine thing that had flash that gets counters whenever you cast a spell during opponent's turn. The bird that gets bigger whenever you draw a card, gets a +1/+1 counter whenever you draw a card. And the other things, they get +1/+1 counters whenever you draw your second card. So there's some synergies in blue with the counters as well, but I really particularly like the green-white with this. But it's just a good card because, again, you can make it at 5 mana, you can make it a 4/4, and the 4 power, as we've seen, does matter with the Garruk's Uprising and other things. So I like this card. I think this is an upper-low pick. It can be possibly lower-mid sometimes, but I think upper-low is good. Very, very playable. Perfectly fine card. Somewhat more exciting than a lot of the upper-low picks that I've said before, but still, I think, in that realm. Grow from the Ashes has kicker as well. So you can pay 3 to search for a basic land card, put on the battlefield, then shuffle. Notably, it's not tapped. If this spell is kicked, instead you can search for 2 basic land cards, put on the battlefield, then shuffle. So this is actually a way to put the land onto the battlefield for that lizard that we're talking about. It's not the most exciting way to do it, but it is 2 lands per turn for that lizard that does 1 damage for each land when it has landfall and does 1 land damage whenever land enters the battlefield under your control. So I like this in slow formats. This was from Dominaria, the original Dominaria originally. Haha. And it is a good one in a slow format. If you don't have a slow format, it can be very, very difficult to make this super playable. So I'm going to see how fast this format is before I really solidify my rating of this card. But for now, I like it. I think it's an upper low to lower mid pick because it's nice fixing to get a land off the battlefield untapped and make sure that you get your mana. And then you can get more mana if you just have nothing else to do with your turn that time. So yeah, it will go up or down in my estimation based on like how fast the format is. Inspiring Call. This is the payoff for having +1/+1 counters on it, right? Draw a card for each creature you control with +1/+1 counter on it. Those creatures gain indestructible until end of turn. I love this card. You have to have the +1/+1 counters. I think it's going to be I think it's going to be a lower mid to upper low pick. If you get it early, like if it's an early thing in the packs, if you already have any +1/+1 counters, like good +1/+1 counter synergies, this is going to be a very high pick, high mid. So yeah, just a really lovely trick. I love it in my Zagana deck for Commander. Yeah, super fun. All right, Land of War Elves we already talked about. Great card. Mild-Mannered Librarian. The thing is, this is from Jumpstart. Originally 1 mana 1/1, but you can pay 4 mana to make it a werewolf, put 2 +1/+1 counters on it, and you draw a card. That's pretty sweet. It's a nice early drop that can become a threat later that also draws you a card. You activate it only once. It's another +1/+1 counter for that Inspiring Call thing. And I really love the flavor of this card, changing into a wolf. Love it. She had always believed in the transformative powers of great literature. Yay! Yay! I love it. Sorry. That's the geek in me going yay. This is fun. I think it's a mid pick. Seems decent. To low mid. It's probably low mid. It's probably low mid pick. It's still good. Nessian Hornbeetle, however, is an upper mid pick. This card is great. It's a 2/2 with huge upside. As long as you control another creature with power 4 or greater, right? At the beginning of combat, your turn, it just starts growing. You put a +1/+1 counter on it. It's another +1/+1 counter synergy thing. And it's just, people feel like they have to remove it before you even ever get like 1 4 power thing. And it's so easy to get 4 power in green here. So this is a huge, really great card. And there's Overrun. Overrun wins games. It is a huge commitment to green because it has 3 green pips. But it is very, very important. Like we said, looking for trample, here's trample. This is best in green-white because you go wide. And so that you get so many things attacking that can't possibly be stopped, and they're big now and they have trample, but it's still useful in any green deck that has, you know, the likelihood of getting triple green. So again, if you're splashing green, this is a really hard splash. I don't recommend it. But if you're decently, like at least half green, you can consider it. It does win games. It's a good card. I will probably be taking this. I mean, if I'm already in green, it's a high pick. If it's already in green, it's a high pick. If it's not already in green, it's probably going to be a low mid pick. Just because you really need to make sure that you're going to be able to cast it. You don't want it stuck in hand for too long. After 5, because you really want to just ideally just do it. Get it done. Nature doesn't walk. Sorry. The Quentin Hoover of that, I think, was one of my favorite. Did it not have a Quentin Hoover? Was the Quentin Hoover in a different one? That might have been Achan's run. But this was the original one with Jeff Miracola from Tempest. It's pretty cool. I feel like the new art really does get it. They get the sense of it a little bit better from Odyssey. The Dance of Angry Feet. So yes, so this is a good card. You just have to make sure to know when to pick it. But it is very, very valuable to decks, to most green decks. Anything that has the capability to cast it. Like I said, best in go wide decks, but still shines in just getting through with those big honkers. Reclamation Sage. Destroy target artifact or enchantment on a body. This is I've seen enough enchantment-based removal that I believe this card should probably be a mid to upper mid pick. Just a good card. It's also an elf. That's a relevant creature type we've seen with Dwynen and the Elite. So, cool beans. Snakeskin Veil at uncommon now. It was common. Now it's uncommon. Gaining hexproof, pretty cool. That's another +1/+1 counter synergy. I'm gonna go with this as a mid to upper mid pick. It's a good card. It oftentimes, depending on the format, stopping one piece of removal is enough to completely turn the game around. Now, admittedly, the formats we've been playing recently are very, very fast and quite powerful, and this is supposed to tone both of those things down a little bit. But until we see how this plays, we'll see how that goes. But Snakeskin Veil is almost always going to be really important, and especially since we now have these +1/+1 counter synergies, like the Inspiring Call, and we saw some other ones too in the new cards, etc. So, yeah, that's a good card. Wary Thespian. I really like this one. This is from Mom, March of the Machines. Cat Druid, relevant creature type. When this creature enters or dies, surveil 1. This is just a nice 3/1 body for 2. Good aggression. And when it enters or dies, surveil 1. That's important too. It's going to be at its best in the decks that have Threshold and Flashback. But it's still good to just fix your draws when you're playing the kitties. Wildwood Scourge. X and a green, enters with X +1/+1 counters on it. Another +1/+1 synergy thing. Whenever one or more +1/+1 counters are put on another non-Hydra creature you control, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. That's always really fun because you play this, right, as a 4. And then if this is in play, right, you put a +1/+1 counter on this, and then you put a +1/+1 counter on this too. Yay! Yeah, 4 counters. I didn't mean like pay it on 4, pay it on 5 for 4 counters. Then when this is in play, and then this gets a counter, and whenever that gets a counter, and yay! Or you could play it on 2, and if you played this horn beetle into one of the 4/2s on 3, and then this on 5, and then yeah, it's light. It's a nice thing. This is already flexible and big. I think this is a an upper mid pick. It's just it's really good for what green wants to do, it appears. So could be a mid to upper mid. I like it a lot from what I've seen. It's a really versatile card because you can play it on curve, and then it can still get bigger even if you play it early on that curve. Okay, so now we're on to the gold, and we saw some new gold cards that are printed for the set specifically. Now we're going to get to the rest of them. There's one for each guild. Balmor is here, so we do have that part of the Dominaria United stuff. So Balmor plus that Tolarian Serpent or whatever it was. That's pretty cool. This is was a really powerful card in that set. I don't know how this one's going to go. I don't know. I haven't seen enough of the cantrips to be. I don't know. Burn spell is decent. It could be. I don't know. This was one of my favorite cards in decks to play in that set, but I'm not sure how good it is in this and how much support it has. We'll see. It's still just a good card. Because mass pumping your creatures and giving them trample whenever you cast an instant or sorcery is so deadly. So I like this card. For now, I'm gonna put this on a mid pick, but I don't know how to rate it just yet. So Empyrean Eagle, other creatures you control flying gets +1/+1. We've seen a lot of angels. We've seen a lot of birds. We've seen some fairies. So this is a pretty good one for that. I think it's a and it's okay stats itself, 2/3 for 3 flyer. So I'm gonna go with mid to upper mid on this again. Again, you have to kind of, it has to be built around a little bit. It's still decent on its own, but not great. So same with this. Yeah. They seem decent. They seem quite good, just not top tier. This seems top tier. This does exactly what green-white wants to do. And it just does it by you playing a creature, right? Or a creature entering. So I think this card is an upper mid pick. This is exactly what you want to do for these colors. So this is an upper mid pick. This is good on its own. It has to be dealt with. It does exactly what you want to do. It puts the +1/+1 counters on things. We've got a lot of +1/+1 counter synergies. It's nice. Okay. Heroic Reinforcements has always been a nutty card. This is an upper mid pick. Can be even a low end of high pick often, just because this card is so dumb in Boros. It always has been. This effect is silly. If you can curve into this, you're just probably winning the game. Yeah, even if you play it on 5 or 6, it's still like, and you've curved into it, it's just dumb. So these two are high picks, in the middle, so high end of mid. And yeah, Ruby I've been less impressed with overall in Wilds of Eldraine, which did have cheap 4 power things, but it's still fine. It does what the Gruul wants to do, so I'm going to put it on the level of the Eagle and Balmor and Ruby here. We're going to put them in the mid. Tatyova's just lovely, but these colors I don't know how powerful this color pairing is. So I'm going to go with, I mean, it's just a really good card, and you can splash it in other decks. I think I'm going to go with upper end of mid for the first copy. And then probably lower end of mid for the second. It's a very good card. It's just not, it's expensive, and I don't know about this color pairing yet. The color pairings that seem to have the most synergies are like black, white, green, white, red, white, and black, blue, and Dimir and this Gruul. Blue white has been a little bit, I haven't seen as much with, and the Simic I haven't seen as much with, and the Balmor seems a little undersupported, but that's just my first impression. I don't know. I really would have to play the set to figure that out. And I'm sure they balanced it better than I'm seeing, but yeah. Okay, so Adventuring Gear. Whenever a land you control enters, equipped creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. 1 mana, equip 1. And we've got the Burnished Heart to find lands. 2 basic lands cards put on battlefield, tap, then shuffle. So that's another way to put, to make that landfall work for you. So we had that Lizard, again, getting a little bit better in Two-Headed Giant with the Burnished Heart, and the Adventuring Gear makes things happen when you put lands into play. But oftentimes I've been disappointed by this because unless you're putting tons of lands into play per turn, or guarantee putting a land into play per turn, the +2/+2 is difficult. And it peters out exactly when you don't want it to. But it's a good ROI for like 1 mana and 1. So it seems fine. Notably that there was a spell that we found that said that destroy target creature and then exile all equipment attached to it. So, or exile and equipment attached to it. So that's important to remember when you're playing this. I think I'm going to rate this one as an upper low pick to lower mid, maybe. Burnished Heart I like. If this format is slower, it's even better. So if it's a really slow format, this goes to like, if it's a really slow format, this goes to upper mid. I think for now I'm gonna lower that to like low mid to upper to middle mid, just because I don't know exactly how slow it is. But this can be a good way to fix your land and make sure that you get and ramp yourself. So, but you have to play it on 3, and then you have to wait and untap, and then do the thing. So, Campus Guide, 2 mana, 2/1. This is from Strixhaven. Whenever this creature enters, you may search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, then shuffle and put that land on top. It's a 2/1 for 2, which is fine. You can play it on curve every time. It can make opening hands keepable that wouldn't be otherwise. And it can fix your mana too. You find a particular land card and put it on top. I am higher on this card than a lot of people. It's still an upper low pick, but sometimes if I'm already like, I'll take it quite highly if I know early in the packs that I really need fixing. That said, we're also seeing this Gold Vein pick here, which is pretty sweet. I really like Gold Vein pick. So 2 mana, equipped creature gets +1/+1, and whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, create a treasure token. So it ramps you and fixes. And equip 1. I really like this card from Kaldheim. That's some good stuff. So the more that I see fixing in this, the less the Campus Guide is going to be super important. But again, it can, like I say, make certain opening hands more keepable than others, and that really does matter when you're in best of 1. So I prioritize these a little higher than I think a lot of other people do. Gleaming Barrier, again for the more controlling decks, I'm gonna label this as a middle of the low picks to maybe, yeah, middle of the low picks. I just don't like this card very much. The toughness isn't enough to block the Gruul stuff like the Turtle was. The Turtle was 05 and this is 04. When it dies, create a treasure token. So it can ramp you and prevent some damage from happening early. But I just don't like this card very much. Especially, there's also tons of artifact and enchantment removal. Not that they would use it on this, but like, if you were counting on this to save you a bit, eh. So I love the Gold Vein pick. I think this is a lower end of mid pick, potentially. I think it's a good card. Heraldic Banner. 3 mana. As this artifact enters, choose a color. Creatures you control of the chosen color get +1/+0 and add 1 mana of the chosen color. So this really is perfect for an aggressive deck. It's perfect for Boros in particular, but it's just really good for any aggressive deck that you're running. That it has a preponderance of creatures of one particular color. So even if you're 2 color, you can still run this because it mass pumps your creatures of a particular color. So yeah. It's just best if you're heavily into one as opposed to the other, if the other's a splash. So, or if you're monocolored, run this every time. Okay. So this is going to be a lower mid pick, but it can move up if you are pretty heavily committed to something, or if you know you're in an aggro thing. Okay. Juggernaut. There's an artifact. That is classic. Here we go. Let's go look at the original Juggles. someday. Later that same day. Nope. Maybe. Thank you. Let's look at this one. No, that's Phyrexian Juggernaut. Let's try this. All prints. There we go. Here it is. Here it is. So here's the revised. This was the one I first played with. It's so iconic. It's so iconic. So, can't be blocked by walls. Haha. Yeah, it was up there with like a good threat that just had to be answered, right? It was cheap for its time. This the 5/3 was actually a good return for 4 colorless, right? Couldn't be blocked by walls, attacked each combat if able. It was just had to be blocked and answered. It's bolt bait here, yes. So it's you know, it's not as good as it was. I'm gonna go with upper end of low, but you know, maybe this format will reward me for it a little bit. I can see like putting combat tricks on with it, and you know, running it maybe in a deck that just needs another 4-drop for the Garruk's Uprising, but I'm not excited about it in this format. Meteor Golem is wonderful in slower formats. If this format is really slow, Meteor Golem. But if you can also mill this card and use Zombify to get it back, that's great. But I've seen so many cards that would benefit from a flicker effect, and I've seen no flicker effects. I've only seen bounce. So the Reanimate might be the best for this, but right now this is going to be a low end of mid pick. It depends how we do. In limited, Swiftfoot Boots has never been terribly, powerful. Usually, if you have a bomb to protect, maybe you run this, but otherwise it's not been that important. Giving some things haste is nice, but I think this is a upper end of low or low end of mid pick. Then you have these lands, the gain life lands, the originally cons, I believe, and you have one of each plus an evolving wilds. The fixing, this is going to be very important. For Threshold, it's also good, so it's worth remembering that. But these guys are going to be just, if you need the fixing, cool. It also gains a life, so the Scoured Barrens is going to be one of the most valuable of these because the life gain decks will really want that. But in a life gain deck, you might want to run this even though it's off color because you gain a life for just playing a land. So it has one off color, but it has the black, right? And you might want to run another white one, right? Like the Tranquil Cove, right? Or the Windscarred Crag, just because you need the life gain, you have all those triggers. So, and synergies. So consider that. It might make your mana a little bit more difficult, and it might make your deck a little slower because you're running more tap lands, but you want to weigh that against the benefit you get from the gaining the life and those synergies. Okay, this is a really gorgeous bit of Evolving Wilds art. It's one of my favorites so far that I can tell. It's just really cool. But yeah, this helps Threshold, so it's a really good one and helps you fix. So you're going to want to prioritize these. They're going to be a lower mid pick to upper low if you are splashing, and sometimes if you have Threshold. Rogue's Passage. Target creature can't be blocked this turn. If you're heavily in like a million colors, you might not want to run this because it only produces colorless. But otherwise, it's quite a valuable card to just be able to, keep getting in if you have 4. I'm going to say that it's probably a lower end of mid pick, but that could change. So Secluded Courtyard, I don't think I would run. Add 1 mana of any color, spend this mana to cast creature spells of the chosen type or active an ability of a creature source of the chosen type. If there were like 5 color goblins, I would do this, but there aren't. This is very iconically fixed on colors on like a 1 color thing. Roast beef. It's too late. I'm already panicking. It's fine. I'm already just anxious. No matter what, I would be anxious. So yeah. But Secluded Courtyard is not something I think I would run in limited. It's a really nice constructed card for Kindred type decks. But yeah, most of these are going to be very iconically green or iconically blue, or iconically X, Y, or Z, right? So like the goblins are all going to be in red. It's not going to be like you need to play a black goblin, right? For the most part. So I don't think playing Secluded Courtyard is right at all. I think this is not a pick. Now, in paper, you may want it because you want it for a deck, and this is a gorgeous artwork piece of it. This is from the special artwork for it, or no, this is the original art, I think. But yeah, so that's the lands, and then they have the basics, and then these are going to be for special sets. These I don't think are in the boosters. Happy Existential Dread Day, yeah. So yes, before I see what these are, because I think these are still in boosters, it said something about, but I'm gonna double check. Because I think I put in boosters at the top, like in booster. Is this how I was supposed to do it? In booster? Card is available in paper and the set is blah, and the card was in booster. Is this what I'm supposed to do? I'm gonna run to the rest of them. Let me know, and then we'll start these if they are going to be draftable. Wait, we've already seen. Yeah, okay. What? If Inspiring Overseer is back in draft, I'm gonna throw a fit. So we're gonna definitely take a look at whether these are draftable. Yeah, so let me know if these are actually draftable. We'll go to the Rares and Mythics if these are not draftable. Otherwise, we'll go through these. So let's take a look at this. Borderless versions? Okay. Foils. Looks like Japan Showcase. Special guests. Okay. Promo cards. Oh yeah, this is the beginner box. That's really cool. For new players, this seems so good. It comes with like it comes with like all you need to just start a game of Magic. It's pretty sweet. Okay, play boosters. Oh, those lands are gorgeous. Look at those. Look at those. I did see the Ajani Cat in the trailer. We should watch the trailer at some point. Okay, so there's a Vivian Forest, a Lily, a Lily Swamp. That's cool. I like the Vivian Forest. The Mountain for Chandra, I'm not as big a fan of. But it's fine. But that's Kaito's Island. That's cool. And those are gorgeous. And Ajani's Plains. Nice. Oh, also non-planeswalker characters. Okay, Giada Zimone. Tiny Bones! Tiny Bones Swamp! Oh my god, that's so cool! Sorry. And that's the Snorse, but who is that? Kellen, okay. And Loot? Is Loot up here? It's hard to see. In paper, I'll probably see that too. All right, borderless cards and mana foils. Okay. Yeah. Wait, isn't this just a repeat of before? Play boosters. Okay, play booster contents. 80 commons. Blah. 100%. Oh, yeah. Jumpstart boosters are separate. And we'll have a different symbol. 387 Magic cards in the starter collections. Loot is in the tree, nice. Okay, collector boosters, bundles, pre-release packs. Yeah, 6 play boosters. So we just need to know the play boosters, which ones those are. Okay. Okay. But the numbered card, I'm going to assume that these are also in the play boosters. But the numbers, though, are higher. I feel like we've gone over... I don't know. Let's see how far this goes. Yeah, because somebody said this isn't in the in the booster. Somebody said these are not in the play boosters, these are part of the special stuffs. Because the gates aren't in the booster packs, they said. I don't know what's happening. Maybe I should put, So is booster. Let's try is booster. Hold on. That was in booster. Okay. 196. We definitely went through all of these. These are all the new ones. We went through all of those. Yep. I think we got it. Okay, I think we got it. I think we did every common and uncommon that you're going to open in this. So let's go, You won? Yes, the giveaway. Congratulations. I'm so happy for you. So awesome. Sorry. Okay. So now let's go into the rares and mythics. Let's do this. I'm going to try not to swear a lot because technically as an ambassador, you're supposed to keep it PG-13. So we'll see how this goes. Okay, so now we have to do is booster. And we have to go sorted by set number. So we have 80 rares and mythics that we're going to go through. I'll sign whatever you want. It'll probably devalue it, but I'll do that. I'll definitely do that. So while I take some bites of food, let's take a look at these. This card I have seen. Stream swear jar, yeah. This I have definitely seen already. It's making rounds all over Twitter. These two I've actually seen, but this one people seem to be getting upset about. How do you feel about this card, chat? Sire of 7 deaths. 7. 7, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 abilities. I don't like it in my limited. No horsemanship. Throw it away. Trash. If this is a slower format, which it looks like it will be, you'll get to 7 pretty easily. And I really don't want to see this across from me. I really don't. So, I think you just take this card. It's pretty clear. I think the format looks slow enough for it. I could be proven wrong, but frankly, it has lifelink. And in order to target it, they have to pay 7 life. So unless they're way far ahead and have a removal spell in hand, it looks pretty difficult to interact with. So yeah, that's a card. Take it. That's most of what we're going to be doing with this, by the way. It's just going to be whether it's an S tier or it's like, so this is a card, a slam. This is a high end of high. Even though it's 7 mana, like you could run into issues with against a really fast deck like Boros. I still feel like it's worth slamming. Unlimited. Okay. Putty Tat. Ward pay 7 mana is impossible to deal with in limited then. That's a no. The only card that would work with that would be like the 1 mana blue enchantment if you had 8 mana. Or the 1 black sacrifice a creature, exile target creature if you had 8 mana. I feel like that's not. I feel like the 7 mana would be a lot. The 7 life is still doable. You just have to be way ahead. And there is life gain in this format, so but you also have to have a removal spell. It's brutal. So yeah, this is a high end of high. Arabo, the First Fang, is a 3 mana 2/2. Other cats you control get +1/+1, so that's not the best there, but it also creates a 1/1 cat token when it comes into play. So effectively it's 3 mana for 3 power across 2 bodies and 2 cats, which again we have cat synergies, really, really important. Sorry, it's 4 power across 2 bodies because it gives other cats +1/+1. So it's 2/2 and 2/2 that it makes as long as it's alive, because it gives the pump. It's a cat lord. And then whenever another non-token cat you control enters, you create another of these. So this card seems really stupid and good. I would slam this as well. First pick, first pack. I don't think it's an S tier. It doesn't automatically put you into white because you have to have some other cats with it. So I think it's first pick, first pack. You can slam it if there's not another rare in the pack, or mythic that's better. But I'm gonna say it's probably a so first pick, first pack, you can slam it, provided there's nothing better. And then if you see it later, it's not something that transitions to it. So I'm going to put it on the low end of high because of that. So again, first pick, first pack, and there's nothing else better, go for it. But it's going to be low end of high compared to other rares just because it is a lord and it requires other things to go right. So Celestial Armor as an equipment. Really pretty artwork. 3 mana, flash. When this equipment enters, attach it to target creature you control. Okay, so like mithril armor thingy. That creature mithril coat from Lord of the Rings. That creature gains hexproof and indestructible. The other one just gave indestructible. Okay, I think. But hexproof and indestructible, gets +2/+0 and has flying. And the equip is 4 mana, so 3 and a white. So it's expensive to re-equip, but +2/+0 and flying, and that hexproof and indestructible at that time. This is a very good card. I'm gonna go mid end of high to low end of high. It's a decent card. It protects. It protect. It pump. It give flying. It's good. So yeah. So basically, like, take these cards. It's just, yeah. This is the one to slam. I think these two are a little bit lower. Crystal Barricade, 2 mana 0/4 defender. You have hexproof, prevent all non-combat damage to be dealt to other creatures you control. So they can't punch them, they can't fight them, they can't burn them, and they can't target you to make you sacrifice this. But they can kill this. But it is a wall and it does require work. So I think this is the low end, the upper end of mid. I actually think it's still fine because they have to deal with it first. So maybe it's a low end of high. It's a good card. It's just not as good as the other stuff here. Exemplar of Light, 4 mana, flying. Whenever you gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. They wanted to stop the Archangel thing. Okay. Whenever you put one more +1/+1 counters on this creature, draw a card. Ability triggers only once each turn. Okay. Good card. Life gain synergies. It's on the low to mid end of high. So like it's above this, but below it's on a par with these two, but above this. And below this. Okay. So this is gonna be, but this is S tier. Like high end of high still should be interesting. Yeah, high end of high, mid of high, and low of high. Let's just go with that. I still think this is upper mid, but maybe I should... Yeah. Okay, anyway. Inexact science. Okay. Not even a science. Inexact art. Okay. There have been other things that give you hexproof too. Creatures that do so. Not walls, usually. It's the second line that's really important. That can really hose Gruul decks. Which are using damage spells and punch spells as their removal base. But they can still just overwhelm you by attacking. Okay. Herald of Eternal Dawn. 6/6 flying flash for 7. You can't lose the game, your opponents can't win the game. It's a platinum angel, but it's got white. Okay. Okay, here's the judge question I have for you all. If it says you can't lose the game and your opponents can't win the game, how does that interact in Two-Headed Giant? I would assume that they just can't win, even if they kill your partner. Wow, look at that artwork. Oh, that's Martina again, the one who did Tasha. Nice. But yeah, if judges have an answer to that, partner stays, and they just can't win, right? Okay. So flash flying, it's triple white, so that's an investment. It's still 7 mana. You can't lose the game and your opponents can't win the game. Platinum Angel was a 4/4. This is a 6/6. There's a little bit of a cray-cray there. But again, it requires an investment in white, and you be committed to white pretty well. This is still, I think, a slam card early because you can prioritize the triple white. And it's just so powerful. A 6/6 flash flyer is already pretty decent, but if also wins this, then you can line up the blocks pretty well. If they have open mana to kill it, though, you're a little bit of me. But the other one was actually more vulnerable, A, because it was smaller, and B, because there's also an artifact, and there's a lot of artifact and enchantment removal in this set. So this is a good card. Okay. And the artwork's so stunning. All right. I have seen this card, Raise the Past, because people are wondering whether you can build some small decks again that just really use this, like they used to use there were a couple of recursion spells that brought things with 2 or less back. Avernus and the other one or something like that. But yeah, you can't lose, your team can't lose. Good. Okay. Okay. So you can build around this. I think Boros really would like this card. But it is mana value 2 or less rather than power 2 or less. Something to remind yourself, because I will often confuse the two. I think this is more of a constructed card than a limited card, but it can get you some decent value in the set. We've seen some good 2-drops. So, I think you could justify running this. I think it's a lower pick, though, because you really have to have a lot go right to do it. And a certain type of deck. So yeah. So this is going to be a low end of high to upper mid, depending. I mean, I don't know. You can just really... I think white really wants this. I don't know. This one might go up in estimation, even in limited. I think in constructed, it's crazy. Sky Knight Squire, 2 mana. Something to get back with this. Heh. It's a kitty. Whenever another creature you control enters, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. Okay? As long as this creature has 3 or more +1/+1 counters on it, it has flying and is a knight in addition to its other types. That's a fine card. It's not a great early card because it doesn't... because 2 mana for a 1/1 not good, especially in white. But whenever another creature you control enters, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature, you could prioritize the ones that put creatures into play. So like following that with Arabo would be great, but also following that with a 3-drop that makes a 2. There's a 2/2 kitty that makes a 1/1 kitty, also really good. already that makes it into a 3/3, and then it will become a 4/4 with flying the next creature that enters. So it's still good. I think it's on the lower end of high or upper end of mid compared to these others. So it's on par with the Crystal Barricade. Well, no, I think it's, yeah, I think it's a little above the Crystal Barricade. I think it's probably in line with like the I don't know. I think these three are better than it. But there we are. Okay, Valkyrie's Call. 5 mana, whenever a non-token, non-angel creature you control dies, return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control with a +1/+1 counter. It has flying and is an angel. Okay. Oh boy. Fun! Slam it. It's a good card. Just make sure you prioritize maybe not as much a token deck. It's gonna be best in Selesnya, I think. And certainly synergizes with the +1/+1 counter theme. But yeah. Seems good. You can definitely make use of it. Archmage of Runes is 5 mana 3/6. Instant and sorcery spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. Whenever you cast an instant sorcery spell, draw a card. This is going to be better in Constructed than in Limited, but still decent in Limited. It's not a slam, but it is a really decent rare for what it wants to do. More on a par with like the Sky Knight Squire and the Exemplar. Okay. Curator of Destinies. 6 mana, can't be countered, 5/5 flyer. When this creature enters, look at the top 5 cards of your library and separate them into face down and face up pile. Opponent chooses one of those piles. So it factor fictions. 5 cards. Okay. So it factor fictions on a stick and can't be countered. For a 5/5 flyer. Pretty nice. Good top end for a blue deck. Seems sweet. Note that these aren't draw effects for the draw an extra card per turn thing. 2 cards per turn. Yeah. I'm still anxious. Yay. Okay. How's everybody doing? Y'all holding in there? Holding up? Hanging in there? Hope you're okay. All right. Seems fine. Nice top end. Not a slam, but still good. Drake Hatcher, 2 mana, 1/3. So I think low to mid high. Drake Hatcher, 2 mana, 1/3. Vigilance Prowess. Whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, put that many incubation counters on it. Remove 3 incubations to create a Drake. Okay. It still has to get in. I think this is a low end of high, but it's really cute. Art. High Fae Trickster. You're good as long as you don't think about it. Yeah. Does the art on what look off? On the Drake Catcher? Is that what you're talking about? It looks like we're trying to go from a particular angle, and that's a very difficult angle to capture well in art. I think for the most part they did a good job, but it's not quite perfect. Way better than anything I could do, of course. But it's almost as if the camera distorted a little bit, too, on the top. But yeah. It is griddle. It is interesting. I also don't like that artwork of Kaito. I really don't. Right, so High Fae Trickster, 4 mana, 4/2 flash, flyer. You can cast any spells as though they had flash. Wow, so it's like an orrery on a stick. Okay. So Vidalcan Orrery, right? 5th Dawn original printing. You can play non-land cards anytime you could play an instant, right? That's what this does on a stick. It's a fairy. Seems pretty good. Better for constructed. But still fun and limited. Like a 4/2 flyer that's going to get in the next turn, you know, potentially that they couldn't, you know, factor in, and that you can, you know, hold up counter spells around is pretty nice. I think I like this as a lower end of high pick, but it is a good card. And just getting hit for 4, like you have to make sure that you're above 4 for blue, which is unusual. I think maybe this might be middle of high, actually. Yeah, that's an interesting thing because it could sort of count as like 4 damage to face. Oh, Lyrazel, thank you so much for working at the polls. So yeah, this seems like a fun one. And casting spells as though they had flash will enable a lot of the stuff that well, a few things that said, you know, when you play on opponent's turn, spell on opponent's turn, like the Brine Cutthroat thing. So that's pretty nice. But I think it's just quite useful. It dies to the shock though that we saw, the burst lightning. So something to keep in mind. Anything with 2 toughness is pretty vulnerable in this to a common. Homunculus Horde, 4 mana, again 2/2. Again, whenever you draw your second card each turn, create a token that's a copy of this creature. Oh, that's hilarious. Oh, if I could get this to work. That's such a bad return on investment though. I don't know. I think this is upper end of mid is where I think this goes. It's a jank thing that I want to do, basically. But I think that for 4 mana 2/2, that's going to be a little bit rough. I don't know. It could go up in my estimation, definitely. There's a lot of ways to draw cards, and loot and do stuff. So, and rummage. So. But it has to stay alive on 4 after playing a 2/2, and I don't know how fast this is, and we'll see. We'll see. Okay, Kaito. Kaito, whose art I don't like. I can type. Good art. Good art. Good art. What the hell? I don't know. Anyway, that's not my style. Okay. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, put a loyalty counter on this. Okay. +1, up to 1 target creature you control can't be blocked this turn. Draw a card, then discard a card. So loot. So that's really useful. This is a very good card. -2 to create a 2/1 blue ninja creature token. Okay. You get an emblem with whenever a player casts a spell, you create a 2/1 blue ninja creature token. The +1's pretty good, and a 3 mana planeswalker is often really powerful and limited. But I'm not. Oh, and so a planeswalker, especially that can protect itself a little bit, is nice. I think it's probably, yeah, nose and mouth, like it's kind of wonky, and the nature of his face doesn't look anything like the other drawings of the face. If you look, like this face looks fairly much like this person could be that person, and this person could be that person, maybe. But then who the hell is that? like, yeah, sorry. Anyway. These could at least be related. This one, not so much. What's with his nose being that sharp? It's huge line, and the brows being so wingy and thick. I don't know. Just, yeah, anyway. Anyway, it seems like a good card. I don't think it's a slam. I don't think it's like the most ridiculous thing I've seen. I don't think it's on par with the other mythics we've seen so far to some degree, but it seems decent. I like the fact you get both of these abilities, and it can end a game by just making, by even being late and just making something unblockable. But early you can just fix hand too. And it can protect itself if it has to by going to 1. There are a lot of things that target planeswalkers, which is good. Where was Ajani? Is Ajani not in the packs? Interesting. Kiora is no longer a planeswalker. There we are. Why is Kaito a planeswalker and nobody else, like, a lot of other people aren't? I mean, like, the Phyrexian invasion did stuff, so we got that. But what protected these specific planeswalkers, do we know? Like, many of them are creatures now. No clue. I gotta read up on this, the lore. The lore is really good, apparently, these days, so. Okay, Kiora, the Rising Tide, 3 mana, 3/2. When it enters, draw 2 cards and discard 2 cards. It's not been said why some retain their sparks and not others. Interesting. It was just kind of random. Oh, God. Come on, Magic. You can do better than that. It tells such good stories a lot of the time. And then other times you're just like, why? Why did this happen? And they're like, because it did. Hand wave. Hi, cat. What's going on? All right. So, Kiora the Rising Tide, 3 mana, 3/2, enters, draw 2, then discard. That's really good for Threshold, which it benefits from anyway. It's good for fixing up hands that wouldn't be good otherwise. And just seems pretty good. So whenever Kiora attacks, if there are 7 or more cards in your graveyard, you can create an 8/8. Cool! Octopus! Yes, I love it. I think this is a really good card. I think it's a middle of the high picks. I think it's a really good card that you'll want to run. Maybe mid to low end of high, actually. I just have to rank these in, like, order at some point. That's what I gotta do. All right. I gotta do, like, a table. I'm gonna do that at some point. But for now, we'll just do pick order. Lunar Insight. This is a harkening back to... Watch. This artwork. So see these ponders, and especially this ponder. That's cool. So Lunar Insight, 3 mana, draw a card for each different mana value among non-land permanents you control. Interesting. Among non-lands, so if you control a token, that'll have a 0. So 3 mana. This could be a 3 mana draw 3 at sorcery speed. Or it could be a divination. I mean, unless it's a win more card, I think it's probably an upper mid pick, not in the highs. Because Because again, if you have like 5 different things with different mana costs, right? Aren't you winning the game mostly already and you're drawing 5? Like, I feel like this is a very situational card that might just be a divination at sorcery speed. I kind of like the uncommon, the 5 mana that gets cheaper for each wizard you control, that draws you 3 cards guaranteed. Because if you have 3 wizards, right? It's going to cost 2 mana for 3 cards, as opposed to this, which is going to cost, if you have 3 wizards of different mana values, this is going to be 3 mana for 3 cards. So I feel like this doesn't belong in the top tiers of rares. I think this is probably I don't know, but it could be a 3 mana forward. I think it's probably an upper mid pick. I think isn't it each wizard you control reduces it by 1? I'd have to go check again. Arcane Epiphany. Oh, it's only once. It's only 1 if you have a wizard. I see. It's not for each wizard. You're absolutely correct. Absolutely. Okay. So it's only going to be 4 better. But this one's so... That's 4 guaranteed 3 at instant speed. Whereas this is... And you only have to have 1 wizard. Whereas this is 3 mana... You have to have different per mana things, not counting lands. And it's sorcery speed, and probably, usually a lot of the time, the best you're going to get is 3. But 3 cards for 3 mana is good, even at sorcery speed. I just don't think it's on par with a bunch of the other rares. Like, I still think it's an upper mid tier. Yeah, it could be 0 if they have removal, absolutely. So I think this is upper mid. I don't think it's on par with a lot of the other rares. It's still fine and good. But yeah. All right, Sphinx of Forgotten Lore. 4 mana, 3/3 flying flash. Whenever this creature attacks, target instant or sorcery card in your graveyard gains flashback until end of turn. Jesus Christ. Slam it. It's good. Okay, moving along. The card's great. Probably best in blue-black, where you can reuse your removal, or obviously blue-red for the spells, where you can reuse the red removal as well. Dang. So, Abyssal Harvester. 3 mana, 3/2 Demon Warlock. Tap. Exile target creature card from a graveyard that was put there this turn. Create a token that's a copy of it, except it's a nightmare and it did that. Then exile all other nightmare tokens you control. That has uses. I think it's still on the lower end of high or upper end of mid. It's good. It's situational, though, and 3 mana for a 3/2 is not the best. You have to have removal with it. Things have to go right. It has to not die. It's got 2 toughness. It's 3 mana. So I'm gonna go with upper end of mid or lower end of high. To review a little bit, we have slam, we have middle, we have lower end of high, we have slam, we have middle, lower, middle, lower / upper end of mid. Probably lower, mid, could go up in my estimation at 8/2. Could actually end up being high. Could be a slam. I'm not sure. But I like this card. But yeah, these are lower, in the upper end of mid. I think these guys. This is a slam. Okay, Edict. Oh yeah, this thing. 13. This is best in Commander. Absolutely best in Commander. It's like a Blasphemous Act or a Vanishing... but what is it? Vanquishing something, something, something? It's another Wrath. Anyway, Vanquish the Hordes, I think it is. Scryfall is having fun tonight. Come on, you can do it. Oh, I didn't even spell it right. That's why. I'm having fun tonight. Yeah. I'm working on it. Here it is. So, Blasphemous Act does 13. This says destroy all creatures, but it gets one less to cast. And then this is Blasphemous Edict. Was there... It might be like a series. We'll see. Wait, no, there was a 13. There was a 13 as well in white in a recent set. Crimson Vow? It was Crimson Vow had it. Each player chooses, like, you choose up to a number between 0 and 13, and each player sacrifices that many creatures. What was that? See if that works. There it is. By invitation only. Okay. So we have Blasphemous Act, which does 13 damage to each creature and costs 1 less for each creature on the battlefield. We have by invitation only, which chooses a number between 0 and 13, and each player sacrifices that many creatures. And now we have Blasphemous Edict, where it's 5 mana, but you could pay just black if there are 13 or more creatures on the battlefield, and each player sacrifices 13 creatures of their choice. So again, best in constructed in terms of Commander, but this, because mostly 13 or more creatures on the battlefield will be Commander, but this is just a good Wrath, obviously. And so I'm gonna high pick this. This is a good thing to have. A no crap button in limited is always really nice these days because the things are so crazy. So I would pick this at a middle of the high to upper end of high. Bloodthirsty Conqueror is a slam. High Society Hunter, 5 mana for a 5/3 flyer. Whenever it attacks, you can sacrifice another creature. If you do, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. And whenever another non-token creature dies, draw a card. I'm going to get milled out by this. I'm pretty sure. But so I think it's a middle of high because it's just a good, card. Although it does die to the Abrade. And it dies to a lot of things, honestly. At 3 toughness. But it is a free sack on attack, which we have found is useful for the black, a lot of the black deck mechanics. So, seems decent. I'm gonna go with the middle end of high for this to low end of high. Oh my god, it's a kitty. It's my kitty. Hi, you're on a card. Hi. How dear, you're on a card. He's on a card. He's on a card. Yeah, exactly. Deft. Exactly. So 9 lives, familiar, 3 mana, 1/1. This creature enters with 8 revival counters on it if you cast it. When this creature dies, if it had a revival counter on it, return to the battlefield with 1 fewer revival counter on it at the beginning of the next end step. I love it. It's cute. It works with the synergies of black in terms of sacrifice. It's also a blocker that keeps coming back. It's not a good return on investment for 3 mana for a 1/1, but it's just interesting in that respect. I think it's going to be an upper end of mid to mid end of mid. I think it's more gimmicky than good. Even though it does synergize with some of the sac effects, it's something that you can sacrifice with no cost to you, really. But I think this is it's really cute, and I think it's not as good as I would want it to be to slam it in limited. So I think it's a mid of mid, something like that. It's fun. It's very fun. So things with creature dying effects work, things with sacrifice effect works, and things with creatures coming back into play work. So, Tiny Bones, Bauble Burglar, 2 mana, 1/3. Whenever an opponent discards a card, exile it from their graveyard with a stash counter on it. During your turn, you may play cards you don't own with stash counters on them from exile. And mana of any type can be spent to cast those spells. 3 and a black, tap. Each opponent discards a card. Activate only as a sorcery. This again is going to be nutty in Two-Headed Giant. You want to slam this for Two-Headed Giant. This is a good card in this because we've seen a lot of rummage, a lot of loot. And if you can exile it from their graveyard, right? Exile it instead, right? Exile it from their graveyard. Then you can take them off Threshold. You can take them off Flashback there, right? It's really nice. I like this in this format. I think it's a lower end of high pick, but it's still a good card. And each opponent discards a card for 4. That's a way to sort of gain advantage when you have a mana sink, when you have nothing else to do with your mana. So what I don't like is that Tiny Bones is not bony. That looks like fleshy bones to me. That looks like flesh. That looks like flesh, 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 flesh. I've said this before, but I'll say it again because I saw it on the, I saw it on this, right? Yeah, fleshy, not bony. Why? Anyway. Wait, could you all see that? Yes, good. Okay. So Tiny Bones seems fun. I don't think I think it's a lower end of high pick, but it's still a good card. Zul Ashur, Lich Lord. So this was referenced in flavor text. So let's go advanced. Can we look at flavor text? Text rules box. No, but I want to look at flavor text. Can we see this? Yes, we can. Yeah, Zul Ashur, Lich Lord. So one of the cool things about Magic is it refers to characters that don't have a card, and then eventually they get their own card sometimes. So it's really neat that they harken back to these. So let the final vision of doom be etched upon their unblinking eyes from M12 Deathmark, which the art you don't want to look too long at. It's pretty epic though. Look at that swamp skull, and then yeah, anyway. Zul Ashur, Lich Lord. Right? Life's essence is a nectar unlike any I tasted when I lived as a mortal. You harbor such vast potential. It would be such a shame to let you die of old age. So, yeah. There's a lot of things that are cool here. They may show up with the wrong thigh bone or mandible, but they always show up. But now we actually have a card. For Zul Ashur, Lich Lord, or Asher. I'm so sorry if I'm not sure which way this goes. 2 mana, 2/2. Ward, pay 2 life to target this. Okay. Tap. You may cast target zombie creature card from your graveyard this turn. There are a lot of zombies in black in this, so that is relevant. I still think it's on the lower end of high. But it can once you get some zombies, or if you take this early, again you can build around it just like the other lord here, the Arabo. So its effect is probably good enough to put it at the mid along with this, but it's close. Okay. Chandra Flame Shaper, 7 mana planeswalker. Okay. 6 loyalty entering. Add 2 loyalty for 3 red. Exile the top 3 cards of your library. Choose one. You can play that card this turn. You can also +1 to create a token that's a copy of target creature you control, except it has haste, and you get to sacrifice at the beginning and end step. 4 mana, deals 8 damage divided as you choose among any number of target creatures and or planeswalkers. That's powerful. I assume that people are going to be first, most likely if on 7, people are first going to be using the -4. But it builds back up pretty quickly. Note that this can't go face, so that is interesting. It's also possible that you just need another creature here. I doubt that on the 7 you're adding the 3 mana and exiling, most likely, unless your board's really empty. It's good. I don't know that I slam this. I think this is a mid pick to low end of high. So middle of high to low end of high pick. I think it's low end. Because it's 7 mana, which we probably will get to with this. Like I said, I think this is a little slower than some of the sets we've been playing recently. But and 8 damage. That's 7 mana, 8 no, okay. This is mid of high. Mid of high, because that's a really nice finisher. For just like wiping a bunch of your opponent's boards. Okay. Electro Duplicate. 3 mana, create a token that's a copy of target creature you control. Isn't that a blue thing? Apparently we've got a lot of well, I mean, we've seen it in red at certain points, but this feels like it's a blue thing. Anyway, create a token that's a copy of target creature you control. It taps to add haste, and at the beginning of the end step, sacrifice this token, and it has flashback. So again, it's a nice way to get value from surveilling this into the graveyard, and then, you know, for threshold that you have or other spells, or casting the spell twice to get value off of your prowess creatures or your creatures that care about spells, other creatures that care about spells, like that Cyclops that gets +3/+0. It's not a high pick. This is going to be an upper mid / mid pick, I think. Kellen Planar Trailblazer. 1 mana 2/1, sorry. Oh, it gets bigger. Okay. So, this is one of those sort of level up type things. So you can pay 1 in a red if it's a scout, which it already comes in as. It becomes a human fairy detective and gains whenever Kellen deals combat damage to a player, exile the top card of your library. You can play that card this turn. Okay, so that gives you something to do on turn 2 if you don't have a 2-drop, and you can get in with it. For 3 mana beyond that, if it's a detective, if you've already done this, it becomes a 3/2 human fairy rogue and gains double strike. Okay, I mean, it's an early 2/1 for 1 in red, which can definitely do things, especially with some combat tricks and or counters from the white stuff. If you're doing Boros, or counters from the green stuff if you're doing Gruul or so on. I don't like this necessarily in the spells deck that much, as much, just because it's a little, I mean, it's smaller for that, but there's so many 1/1s that, like, getting in with a 2/1 feels hard. But yeah, giving it flying would be cool. So that's that 1 mana spell in white, so that's pretty good. Which put us a +1 counter on it, gives it flying. So I think this is a lower end of high pick, but it seems like a sweet card to get some value out of. It's a mana sink when you, again, don't have ways to spend your mana, and it's a fine early drop. It's a fine late drop too, because you can give it 3/2 double strike already for 1, 2, 3. So 6 mana. 6 mana for a 3/2 double strike. That if it hits them, I don't know. Anyway, it's fine. All right, Rite of the Dragon Caller, 6 mana. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, create a 5/5 red dragon creature token with flying. Wow. Okay. So this one isn't necessarily. So if you get this first pack. On 6, it does nothing. You have to have an instant or sorcery spell to do it with it. So either you go ramp and use instant and sorcery with it, but like, so you play it on like turn 5 and then have an extra mana or something like that. I don't even know. This feels a little slow. If it sticks and you have another turn, I think it's going to be nutty, because you can probably make like 3 dragons if you've been saving up your spells. But I feel like this is probably a constructed card where you can ramp faster to it and then cast a bunch of instants or sorceries. But I'm sure it's going to kill me at some point, because I won't have a way, like, we'll get to 6, they'll cast it, I won't have a way to kill them fast enough. Like, if it's a really slow format, this is going to shine, but we'll see how it goes. I'm not going to be slamming this. I think this is probably a lower end of high pick. but I'm sure some people are going to be slamming it. All right. Sear Slicer Goblin. 2 mana, 2/1. At the beginning of your end step, if you attack this turn, create a 1. This is great. I'm gonna go with this as a middle of the high. I think this is a good card. Low end of high or middle of high? This is just goblins want to attack. It's gonna make more goblins. That's great. Seems good. Yeah, I think it's low end of high, but it's still just really good for what it wants to do. So like this is on par with the Sky Knight Squire. It just does what your deck wants to do. But it's not like I'm slamming this card and being like unbelievably happy and it's gonna win the game. Twin Flame Tyrant, that's gonna win the game. Slam it. Loot. Here's Loot. It's cute. And it rhymes. Okay. Exuberant Explorer, 3 mana, 1/4. You can play an additional land on each of your turns. This has to survive. And doesn't have like so. If you attack this turn, it's on the end step, as opposed to Horde Caller is big and attacks well and puts the 1/1 into play immediately on attack. So it's a good card. It's just not. And I'm not saying Horde Caller's better. Horde Caller's 5 mana. It's just different. I wouldn't compare it necessarily to that. Loot. So 1/4, play an additional land on each of your turns. 6 mana, tap it. Look at the top 6 cards of your library. You can reveal a creature card with mana value less than or equal to the number of lands you control from among them and put it onto the battlefield. The rest in the bottom in a random order. Okay, so this is a fine early play because it blocks okay. It doesn't block great because, again, the Gruul and stuff all has like 4 power. But it blocks some early stuff late. Well, remember you have to have the lands in hand, so this isn't really like it's not. It's ramping you if you have the lands in hand, but it's not allowing you to do anything with a top card of your library like Augur of Autumn or anything like that. Late in the game, it can help you. Like when you run out of cards, it can be effectively a draw spell for green. So I think this is on the low end of high. I think it's a good card, but not a great card to slam. It's a good card. It does what you want it to do to some degree. But it's not as aggressive as green really wants to be, usually. So there is that. I mean, sorry. It doesn't have the power. Like, it's not as powerful as green really wants to be quickly. So Mossborn Hydra, 3 mana, trample, enters with a +1/+1 counter on it. Whenever oh god. Okay, so this isn't a 3-drop, this is a 4-drop. I mean, you can play it on 3, but ideally you want to play it on 4, play it and then the land and get a 2/2, and then the next turn play a land to get a 4/4. I think it's the low end of high, but it's a really fun one. And it can get really out of hand, and it has trample, so that's really sweet. But there's quite a bit of time. There's a little bit of time to deal with it, and it's on 3. Nah, I'm gonna go with mid. Nah. Oh, that's a tough one. It depends on how many of the cultivate / stuff that you have on it. You can play it on 3 as a 1/1, absolutely. Like that does leave it open to the -1/-1 to all your opponent's creatures thing, and then does blah, and you're not getting any extra benefit to playing it on 3 necessarily. If you have another 3-drop, I play the other 3-drop. If you don't have another 3-drop, sure, play it as a 1/1. But like, you're gonna get the same value out of playing it on 4 as you would on 3. So I'm gonna wait until 4 if I have something else to play. I'm almost always gonna wait if possible. No, even if I have another 4-drop, this is a nice one to get down on 4, so you at least get 1 bit of value off of it. I think if you have like the other Hydra that says whenever you put a Hydra, whenever you put a +1/+1 counter on something else, put a +1/+1 counter on this, then you can run this out on 3 as well. The uncommon. But I'd rather get a little bit of value out of it rather than leaving it open to like a 1 damage or -1/-1 thing. um and allowing it to block something that's bigger. Okay, preposterous proportions. So yeah, I think this is low end of high to mid end of high, but I mean I think it's low, but I could be convinced that it's mid. It's just it grows very quickly. Preposterous proportion, although it's really bad against the enchantment removal and the bounce. Never mind. Hold on. I think because of all those, I'm gonna put low end of high to upper end of mid. It's good stuff, but it's just not. Yeah, I'm gonna go low end of high, I think, for now, and pretty confidently, and not middle of high. Okay, preposterous proportions, 7 mana, creatures you control with plus 10% of vigilance until end of turn. You want this if you already have the like Garrix in play, so that all your creatures have trample. The Garrix, whatever it is, rebellion or whatever. Those are some big squirrels. I might have to put that in my squirrels deck. So yeah, I might have to. This is pretty sweet. It's a lot to do if you go, and if it's best in the green white where you go wide, as opposed to the green white where you go tall with counters necessarily. You want those stuff on tokens basically. So that's a thing. I don't think this is an extremely high pick. Well, maybe it is, because even if you can get in with one creature, that's still like over 10 damage. Maybe this is a high pick and I don't even know. I think let's call it middle of the high. Let's try that and have some fun. All right. Quilled Great Worm. 6 mana, trample, 7/7. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage during your turn, put that many +1/+1 counters on it. Any combat damage? You can cast this card from your great... Slam this card. That's dumb. Okay. You can cast this card from your graveyard by removing 6 counters from among creatures you control in addition to paying its other costs. Cool. So if you mill it or it dies, it comes back. Yay! And it gets value the turn it comes into play by attacking with whatever you have. As long as your creature survives, it's going to get that many counters. That's sick. All right. Spinner of Souls, 3 mana, 4/3 reach. Whenever another non-token creature you control dies, you may reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature card. Put that card into your hand, the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. I like this card. This is very good. I like this card. This is a middle of the highs. Might even be a slam. Like 4/3 for 3 is with reach is already decent. And then that value in green is so good because green just doesn't have that many ways to draw, and it just keeps making sure that you refill with a creature card. I think this is a middle to high. Like this might be a slam. I like this card. I think it's very good. It is only another non-token. You have to make sure, like, so it dying doesn't do this, but yeah, I like that card. I think it's a middle of the highs. I don't think it's a slam, but I think it's middle of the highs. It's a really good card. Sylvan Scavenging, 3 mana. At the beginning of your end step, choose 1. Put a +1/+1 on target creature you control, or create a 3/3 green raccoon if you have a creature with power 4 or greater. Yeah, combat damage. Any combat damage. Any combat damage, as long as it survives, it gets that counters. So if this hit a creature that was a 2/2, it's going to gain 4 counters on it. If this hit face, it's going to gain 4 counters on it. Wait. It deals 4 damage to the 2/2. It doesn't deal just 2, right? Yeah. I'm pretty sure that's how that works. All right. Anyway, it's late and I'm so anxious and a mess. Sorry. Sylvan Scavenging. Okay. So that seems good, right? You get to put up some kind at the end of the step. Or you get to start making Deuter guys. Okay. I think this is on the low end of high, but I think it's a really good card. Might be mid, depending. It's best in Gruul, obviously. Or anything with 4, guaranteed 4 toughness a lot. Alicia, who laughs at fate. 1 in a Rakdos set of colors. First strike 2/2. Whenever it attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on it. Okay. Yes, it still has the 4 damage. You can just assign the 4, right? it's actually doing the 4 damage even though the creature dies at 2. Okay, so incoming ad break again, 40 seconds. Thank you so much for sticking with the stream. Really appreciate it. Through the ads, they are what enable us to have a stream at all. Yay. There are other streamers on who you can go visit too if you would prefer to avoid the ads, or you can subscribe with free with Prime or pay monies. Yay. Okay. Anyway, this attacks put a plus one. Seems good. At the beginning of your end step, if you attack this turn, return target. Wow, this card is great. Okay, if you attacked, like, it doesn't have to attack. If you attacked, just return target creature. Oh my god. I'm gonna go with, it's 2 colors. So I don't think I can say slam. I think it's mid of the high, but I want to slam this card. This is so powerful, and you can probably splash it. This is so powerful. I want to say slam this. So, but it is 2 colors. I don't know. It's not, yeah, it's a very good one. Early, I think, the 2 colors are great for removal, absolutely, to get in with the raid. It doesn't even have to have attacked for this, and, I really want to say slam this, but again, the only thing holding me back is the 2 colors early. I mean, first pack, maybe. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, Anthem of Champions. Creatures you control get +1/+1. This is fine. We've had anthems before. I don't think that this synergizes very well with the this particular thing. Yes, you can go wide with tokens and this gets the +1/+1, but I prefer the like charge effect. I also prefer the +1/+1 counters because I think that's where the synergies lie in Selesnya. So this is a fine card, but I'm not going to be slamming this card. This is like a upper end of low pick. Sorry, lower end of high pick. Sorry, lower end of high pick / upper mid, honestly. Because it's 2 colors, creatures you can get +1/+1, but again, it doesn't synergize really with the white green and what it wants to do as much. Going wide, sure, a little bit, but I'd rather the instant speed +2. Honestly, the uncommon. In that deck, I'd rather this, which puts a +1/+1 counter on the things, because there's so many things that get value for putting +1/+1 stuff in Selesnya. So anyway, you could probably splash it in a different deck and be happy. Like, you could splash it in like a flying deck and be pretty happy, like a blue-white deck, and put the green to just splash for this. But I don't know, not hugely a fan of this right now. Ashroot Animist, 2, a green and a white, 4/4. We all call these anthem effects. That's great. Trample, so I love that it's there. Trample, 4/4. Because Glorious Anthem was the first time we did creatures you control get +1/+1, I think. It was 1 a white and a white. So alright, when this creature attacks, another target creature you control gains trample and gets +X/+X until end of turn, where X is this creature's power. That card's great. And it's a 4/4 to start with, and it has trample, and it gives the, yeah. Okay, so, but it does have to attack, it's when this creature attacks. So I'm gonna go with middle high to lower high on this one. It just does what that deck wants to do all the way. Again, probably lower end of high. It's probably on par with the Sky Knight Squire. I don't know about Drake Hatcher. And Tiny Bones. Yeah, loot doesn't really do what the Gruul deck wants to do, or like the green deck in particular. But yeah, okay, wait, what? Oh god, hold on. Okay, so Alenda's back. So, lifelink hexproof from instance. As long as your life total is greater than your starting life total, guess +1/+1 has menace. An additional +5/+5 as long as your life total is at least 10 greater. Alright, it's still a 4/4 lifelink for 4, and Orzhov wants that. I'm going to put it on the low end of high because it does what the deck wants to do. If you have life gain synergies, it's going to get better. Hexproof from instance is not inconsequential. A lot of the removal is at instant speed. but there are sorceries, of course, and we've seen enchantments. So this is still killable, but it's harder to kill. So I'm still gonna put it on the par with that, you know, the ash root and the plus one kitty up here. It's good stuff. Okay, now what's Coma doing? So it's the same casting cost as before, I think. Can't be countered, as always. Trample, Ward 4, 8, 12. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, create... I'm gonna slam that one. It's a lot of commitment to that color, but I think that's a really good card. I think that works. The Ward 4 makes it really hard to kill. So I like it. Yeah, moving along. That would be a reason to go into Simic. I haven't seen many reasons to go into Simic so far, but this would be a reason. Kaikar is back. Okay, Zephyr Awakener. 4 mana, 3/4 flyer. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, choose one. Exile another target creature you control. Return that card to the battlefield. Okay, so here's our only flicker effect that we've seen so far. This is actually good with several of the commons and uncommons that we saw. An actual flicker effect. We have a lot of ETBs that go really well with this in blue and white, so that is nice. You can also splash it in another deck and get that value off of ETBing other colors, so that's sweet. And then you could also create a 1/1, or you could create a 1/1 spirit creature token with flying. So yeah, seems good. I like this card. I think it's a mid of the highs because I mean, we've seen how good Flicker could be in this. So it does require a few things to go right because you have to have a non-creature spell in addition to it, and a creature that you want to flicker. And it's only another target creature, so it can't protect itself. Remove a Coma beforehand, yeah. I mean, the best way, like I said, would be the blue 1 mana enchantment that makes it a legitimate business person if you can pay 5 mana, as well as the 1 mana removal spell, the black removal spell that exiles a creature if you pay 5 mana. So you pay the 1 and the 4 for the ward. Niv Mizzet is back as well. 6 mana, 5/5 flyer. You have no maximum hand size. Whenever a source you control deals non-combat damage to an opponent, you draw that many cards. That's not good in limited. I mean, it's a 6 mana, 5/5 flyer. That's fine, but honestly, you're not doing that much non-combat damage in this set that I've seen to an opponent. You're making them lose life, sure, and on occasion you can burst lightning their face. But a lot of the burn spells go only creatures or planeswalkers. So I really feel like this is not as good as it should be for limited. I'm not slamming this. I think this is probably like once you have a few burst lightnings and stuff, this is probably like a mid pick, honestly. It's still a 6 mana flyer, but that's the reasons for that. I just haven't seen enough to support it. Because again, you have to play it out, it has to survive, then you have to have the spells. So I don't know. And if you go face as opposed to like the threats that are there. All right, Zimone. What is Zimone doing now? 4 mana, 1/4. At the beginning of combat on your turn, put a +1/+1 counter on each of up to 2 target creatures you control. Seems good. Oh, it's got double the number of each kind of counters, of each kind of counter on up to 2 target creatures and or artifacts you control. Dang! That is going in my Zagana deck. That's like a combination of like, is it Varel? What was the oh god, Varel? No, it can't be that. That's no Vorel. Yeah, Vorel of the Hulklade. So it does this, but to 2 things. But only creatures and artifacts, not land. So there is that. But it does it to 2 things, and it does this other thing. It actually puts the counters on, so it's better. Of course, yeah, that's power creep. Yeah, I would slam this card. Okay. Okay. So it seems to do very, very good things. I like that. I mean, it's not a slam in the same way that certain of these others are, because it requires more things to go wrong. So maybe I should be putting it at mid. But it is so much fun that I want to put it at slam. It's probably the middle of the highs, but not a slam. But yeah, sleep well, Gretel. Hello there, Thunder. How you doing? Banner of Kinship. Here we go. As this artifact enters, choose a creature type. This artifact enters with a fellowship counter on it for each creature you control of the chosen type. Creatures you control of the chosen type get +1/+1 for each fellowship counter on this artifact. Okay, so this is for bunny decks and mouse decks, more in constructed than anything. It can still be pretty good, like if you get a dedicated elves deck or a dedicated goblins deck. I think the goblins in this is what I would most want this in, or even cats, because I think those produce the most of themselves. But I don't think this is a high pick. I think this is probably a lower end of high to upper end of mid. It can absolutely do stuff. It's probably the finishing move, but it does require you to really have a Typal/Kindred synergy deck pretty heavily, because they have to be in play, and this, so it's not like Door of Destinies, in which you keep getting counters on it more. Door of Destinies also doesn't start with any counters, so, you know, blah, but this one could get more. This is best if you curve into it with creatures of that type, obviously. So, but it's cute. All right, Leyline Axe. Okay, what is this gonna do? Let's see. But like, obviously an Anthem is better if you have just 2 mana. But this is 5, so you have to have at least like a few. If you have 3 of all that type, yes, the same type. But remember, in limited, that's going to be a little bit less likely. I mean, sorry, a lot less likely than in constructed. So Leyline Axe, 4 mana. If this card is in your opening... Holy crap. Okay, it's a Leyline, but it's an axe. Okay, and equipment. If this card's in your open hand, which if I put it in my deck, it never will be, you may begin the game with it on the battlefield. It equips 3 and gives +1/+1, double strike, and trample. So ideally, it comes in your opening hand. And it's probably worth running. I don't think I'm going to be, you know, unbelievable. It's not Embercleave. We'll put it that way. Because it doesn't go cheaper for when you attack, and it doesn't flash in. It's still good, but I think I'm going to go low end of high on this one. It does go in any potential deck, and if you can get it early, it's nice. But, yeah. Okay. Scrawling Crawler, 3 mana, 3/2. At the beginning of your upkeep, each player draws a card. That's really good for the, like, draw a second card turn synergy stuff. As well as for that bird that gets bigger every time you draw a card. Morning, Erendir! Whenever an opponent draws a card, that player loses 1 life. Interesting. So this is like Psychosis, dude? Hold on. Psychosis Crawler. So yeah, whenever you draw a card, each opponent loses 1 life, but instead this is going to be whenever they draw a card, that player loses 1 life. And it is an opponent, so again, this is going to be nutty in Two-Headed Giant. So an opponent draws a card, that player loses 1 life. So they're going to lose 2 life for drawing a card, which is nice. Each player draws a card at the beginning of your upkeep. So it is going to sort of, but you get to use the card first, which I really like. I think this is a, it accelerates things a little bit. I think it's probably... Hey, Baldric! So this looks really fun and limited. So at the beginning of your upkeep, each player draws a card. You get to use it first. Draws a card. Whenever opponent draws a card, the player loses 1 life. Seems pretty sweet. It's a 3 mana 3/2, not a great ROI, but again, you get to draw a card on your upkeep and use it before they get to draw their extra card, so that's pretty sweet. Unless they're in blue and playing during your turn, which does suck. Okay. So seems good. Seems really nice for constructed. But seems okay for limited. I'm going to go with probably on the low end of high, just because I feel like if you accelerate certain decks, it's gonna go worse for you than for them, but it might go a little higher than I'm thinking. All right, Soulstone Sanctuary. Add 1 colorless. 4. This land becomes a 3/3 creature with vigilance and all creature types. It's still a land. So it's just a colorless man land with 3/3 and all creature types though. So it's harkening back to Mana Vault. Wait, no, mana something. Help. Mutavault. That's what it is. Mutavault. Yeah, you guys got it. Yep. So becomes a 2/2 creature with all creature types still in a turn. It's still a land. That's for 1, and it's very powerful. This is for 4, 3/3 with vigilance in that. And all creature types. It's not until end of turn like this is, so that can explain the difference. So yes. So that's the difference there. It's an interesting one. Again, if you're in multiple colors, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to justify putting the colorless land in your deck. But if you are in 2 colors, I can see definitely running this as just an extra value piece out of the land slot. If you're provided your colors, your dedication to colors isn't excessive. Like if you have a ton of 2, color pips in each color, I probably wouldn't try to run this. I think it's an upper mid pick, or mid pick, not in the high picks, for that reason. Ajani Caller of the Pride. I believe these are also going to be in the booster packs. I think when we said is booster, so it should, these should all be here. So, let's go through these. So we've got the Ajani, Caller of the Pride, 3 mana Planeswalker, enters with 4 loyalty. You put a +1 counter on top to 1 target creature. That works really well with the Selesnya synergies for +1/+1 counters. The -3 to target creature gains flying and double strike until end of turn can absolutely just end a game. So I think this card is a slam in this format in particular. So I think these 2 make it worthwhile. It's just a fun one. So definitely take that if you get it. It's a commitment to blue of just double pips, so it's not too hard to do. Sorry, to white. I'm sorry, I'm such a mess. So yeah, it's a fun card. Authority of the Consuls is going to be really, really good in the life gain deck, and it's also just really good for tempo, for at 1 cost against opponent. There is a lot of enchantment removal, but it really hurts to have to use enchantment removal on this. But just the tempo you get of your creatures, your opponent's control coming into play tapped is worth it. Even if you're not a specifically gain life deck, but for a gain life deck, you're gonna slam this. I think I would slam this anyway. I think it's just really good in this format from what I'm seeing. So I think this is a high end of high for me, to mid of high. Usually this is less good in limited just because the games are a little slower and coming into play tap matters a little bit less than in constructed, but I think this is still, in this format particularly, is really good. In Kaladesh, it was quite good. It was decent. Yeah, I believe. In my opinion, I never played that online, so I only played it in person. So, and not a lot of people opened this, so it was fine. It did that tempo thing. I had it used against me and I played it, so I don't think it was a slam during that format necessarily, but this gained life. They didn't have life gain synergies in Kaladesh to my best of my memory, and this does. So I think this is a slam pick, or slash middle of the high pick, but I think it has a ceiling too. There has a high ceiling. Day of Judgment, another Wrath. We have to be very, very careful to know that this is in this format. That's important. And it's really good. We have another Wrath in black. And so this Wrath and the Wrath in black. We have a 3-mana red uncommon that does 2 damage to each creature without flying. So it's important to consider that these are in the format and to play around them when you can, when it's useful to do so. And to not play around them when you can't. That's key too. Giada being reprinted, 2 mana flying vigilance. All of these are reprints. Now that we're getting to this, these are all reprints. We've gone through this was the last of the new cards here, this Soulstone Sanctuary. So Giada, Font of Hope. This is the 2/2 angel that adds 1 white for any other angel spell, and then also each other angel you control enters with an additional +1/+1 counter on it for each angel you already control. So it's just a good 2/2 flyer vigilance with upside because there's quite a few angels in this, so that's nice. I think I would probably rate this as a low end of high to do that, just because a 2/2 flying vigilance creature is just a good stat, period, even if you have no other angels. Oh, is there a really nice full art Giada? Nice. Extravagant replication. Okay, anyway. Extravagant replication, 6 mana. At the beginning of your upkeep, create a token as a copy of another non-token permanent you control. Just 1 Ether Tiger? What do I look like? A peasant? So this is a sweet little card, especially if you have the ET stuff with the ETB effects. It's really sweet. I think it's more a gimmick than anything. I think it's probably, could be good. It's a target non-land permanent, so it can also copy other things. But remember, it does nothing for 6 mana. So we have to be a little bit worried about that, like just like we were worried about the red one that does nothing for 6 mana. So the next turn, you're going to get value out of it, but not until then. So, it's a little bit of a risk, and therefore it goes lower on the pick order. So I'm going to go mid of the mid / upper end of mid for this one. Omniscience is, without draw, is less good. I think this is probably something to pick up in paper, just because you might want to play it in a commander deck, or some sort of constructed, but I do not think this is worth playing in draft. It says another target. Yeah. Another target non-land permanent. You cannot copy itself. Time Stop, again, more for constructed than anything. Gorgeous artwork by Scott M. Fisher. Absolutely stunning. I love this artwork. The effect, though, yes, I will lose to this on occasion, but I don't, because remember, this can just stop their turn, like stop them from taking their whole turn on 6. So you can end their turn on 6. So it is playable, but I'm not going to play it really heavily and highly, and I am going to get gotten by it on occasion. I acknowledge that. So, but this one is a mid pick to mid to lower mid pick for me. Liliana is a slam pick. Dreadhorde General is a great card. Painful Quandary can win games, but is a trap. This is going to be an upper end of low pick. If it's even that. It's really a trap, I've found. This ends the turn. So if you can play it on their upkeep on the 6th turn, you can stop them from playing anything that turn, doing anything from that turn, and you just go into yours. So, Phyrexian Arena, good card in limited. Card at the cost of 1 life is always worth it. This is a slam. Rise from the Dark Realms is 9 mana. Almost never are you going to get to that and be not already winning. But maybe you get a board stall. Maybe this is really slow. Maybe you have a lot of ramp. You can try it out. It's a risk. It's a huge risk. It's 9 mana. So, and there may not be creatures in the graveyard that matter. So again, this is more of a constructed card. You can do with that what you will. But this is mostly unplayable in my opinion. Just like this. Runescarred Demon, however, is fantastic. I would slam this card. It is 7 mana for 6/6 flyer, but it demonic tutors. So, demonic tutoring in limited is less strong than in constructed just because the cards are less strong overall. But I really like this card, and it's a pet card of mine. I probably would slam it. It's probably actually a middle of the high picks as opposed to the highest of the high, but I love it. Brass's Bounty, more of a constructed card in my opinion. I don't like this card in limited at all. We don't have like a you win if you have X treasures in the battlefield, or if you sacrifice a treasure. It's a lot of value cards. Drakaseth is a slam. It's great. It is a real commitment to red, but it's a very powerful card. Atali, also very powerful card. So these are high picks. Flamewake Phoenix, Flying Haste, attacks each turn if able. It's a 2/2. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, you may pay red and return it to the graveyard from the graveyard to the battlefield. This is a low end of high pick. It's a really good card. It does what you want it to do in red, especially in Gruul, where you're having to have the 4 power or greater. You're not really going to want to play this in the spells deck, usually, unless you have the Tolarian Serpents or whatever those are, the 5/5s in your spells deck. But almost always this is going to be best in Gruul, where you have a lot of 4 power creatures, and you can keep getting it back, keep hitting opponents with it. It's not a slam pick, but it is a fine card. Krenko is dumb, and I will be high slamming this because it's just, if they can't answer it, it's so dumb. And if you have any goblins, it's so dumb. Even if you don't have goblins when you put it out, and you can get 1 the next turn and then 2, and it's so good. So yeah, sorry, you can get 2 the next turn and then 4, and then yeah, it's just dumb. So take this card. Slagstorm is another Wrath type, small Wrath. Would I pick Atali over Phoenix? First pick, first pack? Probably. Given the number of flyers that I've seen that just eat this, I think I would take Atali first pick, first pack over Phoenix, yeah. Slagstorm is another mini Wrath. So deals 3 damage to each creature or 3 damage to each player. Again, kills the small things so that you can buy time to get to the bigger things. It's important to remember that this is in the thing as well. It's also kills flyers, not like the uncommon that only kills only does 2 and kills non-flyers only. I think it's going to be important to remember that this exists in the format. Again, this is a lot of Wraths that we're seeing. So 2 mini Wraths in red, and the white and the black Wrath. It's a lot of like mass removal that is a little bit interesting. There's a lot of stuff that this Slagstorm kills. I think if I had an option to pick this early, I would be really happy with it. To take it and just build around like the bigger stuff. Or if I happen to get past all the small stuff, at least I took it away from the person in my pod in person. On Arena, you're probably not going to have to prioritize it like that. If you're already in a deck that's big creatures with big toughness, you'll take the Slagstorm, or big creatures that are going to cost stuff so that you can wipe the board and don't get overrun by aggro. Because This is to each player, remember? So in Two-Headed Giant, it's pretty cool. It will deal it to both of you as well, but if you need 6 damage to the opponent and you're still up, that's fine. So be careful about this, though. You can use it to get a tie if you're both at 3. So yes. I think this is probably an upper end of mid pick, but sometimes I'll if I'm already in Gruul, like toward, you know, second and third pack, this is going to be a really high pick. Or in something with big creatures, that's going to be high pick. And again, it's also a nice oh crap button against you if you face another super aggro deck to some degree. Doubling Season in Limited is not usually worth it. It takes too much investment of mana, and then again doesn't do anything the turn it comes into play, usually, unless you have something already getting a counter naturally, or so on and so forth. It's more of a gimmick than anything, even in a set that has a lot of counters or creates tokens. You can take it because it can go into it's very valuable in certain EDH decks. Really, really good. I love it, and I love that art. But I think it's not a high pick in Limited. This is a nice, we've got a lot of elves in this that I've seen, so this is a nice card. It's a 3 mana that ramps you and also is an elf lord. So again, if you have a lot of elves, definitely take this. I don't think it's a slam first pack, because again, it's a double green and 3 for a 2/2. So if you aren't really going to be doing much with that, that's a problem. So it's a lower end of high pick or an upper end of mid, as opposed to anything else like that. Genesis Wave, reveal the top X card of your library. Cards of the library, you may put any number of permanent cards with mana value X or less from among them onto the battlefield. Then put all cards revealed this way that weren't put onto the battlefield into your graveyard. So it is a way of getting Threshold pretty quickly for the Simic decks if you wanted. Mainly it's you have to have a lot of mana and 3 green to get a lot of value off of this. So if you have a lot of ramp, great. I feel like, so if you have like 6 mana, so you can reveal the top 3 cards and put any number of permanent cards with mana value X or less from among them onto the battlefield. If you have 8 mana, you can look at the top 5, anything with 5 or less. I think 8 is where this card is probably going to serve you the best, unless you're a very low to the ground green deck, which I don't usually see happening that much. You also have to be heavily prioritizing green because the 3 pips. I think this card is a little bit is going to be dead in the hand a lot of the time until late, and is really only a late game card. So I think this is a low mid pick. It can do stuff, but it's going to require a lot of things to go right. So Galta, Primal Hunger. This card is great. I would probably slam it. This card just overperforms. You just get it out so much sooner than you're expecting usually. So I like this card. It's probably supposed to be a middle of the mid picks, but I would probably slam it. Again, probably mid pick, but it's just a really good card. So yeah. Isn't what a win more card? Galta? No, Galta will win the game for you often. If you're like a 3/4 out and then a 4/2, like especially in the green in this, which has really big power and really low butts, this can come out on turn like 5. Oh, Genesis Wave? Yeah, no, that one's a low pick, like we said, like a lower end of mid. If that. It might be more of a trap than anything, but sometimes it can do stuff on 8 mana. And if the format's really slow, that might actually matter. Or if you have ramp. So Galta is great. Scavenging Ooze is really good in this format. You should take it. It's a really good thing because, again, there are so many things with flashback, so many things with threshold, and you can just put your opponents off of that. I really like this, and it gains life, so it's good for your life gain synergies. I would slam Ooze too, but that's me. Vivian Reed is a powerful planeswalker. It doesn't protect itself usually, which is a little bit of a pain for a 5 mana planeswalker to no longer protect itself. Look at the top 4 cards of your library. You can, but Ajani was a 3 mana, but it didn't protect itself. But at least its abilities were really powerful at that point. 5 mana, you can just reveal a creature or land card and put it into your hand. Is not great. Destroying target artifact, enchantment, or creature with flying is nice, but then it's down at 2. Vivian has been outclassed, I feel, a little bit more with recent green planeswalkers. But still worth playing. I just think it's a lower end of high as opposed to the rest of it. It's just not as powerful as a lot of the others here in my mind. More win, am I right? Yeah. Consuming Aberration is back. So from Gate Crash? Was it Gate Crash? Hold on. Yeah, Gate Crash. Okay. So this, power and toughness are each equal to the number of cards in an opponent's graveyards. In your opponent's graveyards, rather. In any opponent's graveyards, right? When you cast a spell, each opponent reveals cards from the top of their library until they reveal land card, then puts those cards into their graveyard. So if you're enabling somebody to get Threshold or find stuff with Flashback, that does suck. But the thing is, this is usually quite powerful because revealing until they reveal a land card can mill them out pretty quickly. And the fact that they're going to have a lot of stuff in their graveyards means this is going to be huge. So I think this is a good set for this because a lot of people are going to be milling themselves already and or surveilling. So I like this card. Obviously, it's going to be best against the colors that it is, but it's pretty sweet. I don't think it's a super high pick. I think it's probably on the low end of high, but it does a lot of what this things wants to do. Okay. Lathril is reprinted. This was a commander card. So 3 mana, 2/3 menace. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, create that many 1/1 green elf warrior creature tokens. I love this card. Tap 10 untapped elves you control. Each opponent loses 10 life and you gain 10 life. This is just a really, really powerful card, period. If on its own, if you can get in, you're just making so many elf tokens. It is a little expensive for like 4 mana for 2/3 menace, not great. But as long as you have the backup for it to get in, it is very, very good. I want to put this on the mid, so low to mid end of high. It's 2 colors. It's a little understated, but like if you can make it work, you can make it work. Literally, tautologically. But yeah, good card. Not slam, but you know, a good card to build around and do stuff with. And especially prioritize removal and getting through. And trample and plus blah. It has menace, so it's hard to block, but it is at 4, and by then they probably do have 2 creatures out with the set. So you need the removal or the pump or stuff. Okay. Muldrotha, you can slam this if you can find the, like, I would slam this card because oftentimes you can get that fixing, and it's just such a powerful effect. It does something when it comes into play because it's a 6/6. It's a big butt and big card. So whereas the other things that I was saying, I don't like these because they don't do anything on the turn they come into play. This is a big creature when it comes into play. So at least there's that. And then if it survives, you have so much additional value. So this card I really like. I would slam it even though it's 3 colors, and I would prioritize making that work. Progenitus is a trap. Do not touch it. Don't do it. It's not going to go to your graveyard, so you're not going to be able to reanimate it. Don't think about it. This is a constructed card, and even then, it's a janky one. It's fun. So I have it in my 5 color, or I used to have it in my 5. I don't know if it's still in my 5 color deck, but my 5 color jank deck. Yeah, that's Progenitus. It's a thing. I'm sure I'm going to die to it, by the way. Having said that, I'm sure I'm going to die to it, but don't do this. All right. A swift, unless there's like is there an Elvish Piper in this or something that could let you put into play from your hand? I don't think I've seen one, but anyway. Achievement tied to Progenitus, yeah. Swiftblade Vindicator is a really good Boros card, especially since there's so many +1/+1 counters in this, in white. I am definitely all over this card. This is a nice one. I think it's a upper end of mid to lower end of mid. It's probably on the upper. 1,000 Year Storm is too slow for limited most of the time. Maybe this isn't, but I haven't seen a ton of instants and sorceries that I'm so excited to play and double them in this when this doesn't do anything on turn 6. So I think this one's more of a trap as well. So like don't play in my opinion. I'm sure I'm going to die to this as well at some point. Solemn Simulacrum, good 4-drop. I'm going to go with probably lower end of high to upper end of mid. And that looks to be the end of them. That looks to be what you can open this weekend at the pre-release. We covered the commons and uncommons, and we all both reprints and new, and we covered the rares and mythics, both reprints and new. So these are the cards you're going to be playing with, and these are approximately where I would put them in the order of pick for draft and in the order of like power level overall. So hopefully that'll be helpful in this pre-release weekend, and we'll see where you go from there. This is a really cool set, a really cool amount of Magic history, and a really cool look into... Also, I just love this new art here. Threats? Extortion? Good sir, you have me all wrong. I am a legitimate businessman. My colleagues and I are simply here to conduct legitimate business. So it's got the flavor text. It's got the big dinos, the dragons, the demons, the angels, the elves, the merfolk, the humans, the soldiers, the knights, the everything. And it just all of sort of what is iconic about Magic for so long. And in a big set, it's just really, really nice. So this is really cool. I think we'll try and go over the specials next time on stream. We'll go over what those look like and what you can expect to get out of like Jumpstart and all sorts of other extras. So yeah, the Jumpstart and the special guests and the special treatments, etc. So pretty neat. So hopefully this has been enjoyable. I'm so sorry. I'm such a mess right now. And I'm probably gonna have to sign off now rather than playing a game like I wanted to after this, like yesterday. Yeah. Thank you for allowing me to focus on something else tonight, and some really cool Magic cards in this new Foundations set. I love you too, Vega. I appreciate it, and I think this set's really cool. I hope that for 5 years that it's going to be legal. We get to see how cool it really is and learn more about the design of it and get to really appreciate it. It seems to have something for everybody, and different themes for its iconic themes for its color pairs as well as its single colors. So yeah, I think it's got, you know, cards for everyone, cards for new players, cards for you know, standard players, modern players, commander players, etc. And of course, I hope it's going to be a good limited set. It does, like I said, look a little slower to me than many limited sets recently, and I'm going to enjoy that because, again, that means more decisions. Each decision matters more. You get incremental advantage. Those are the types of games I love. So I'm pretty excited for this. I hope you are too. I wish you the best of luck at your pre-releases if I don't see you again for the next review of the special guests, etc. But yeah, I thank you for hanging out with me.